Chapter 1936. Arbor stared coldly at Guan Ying, who was lying on the ground. A vine flew up and landed heavily on her body. "You can die now." Viciousness flashed through Guan Ying's eyes. Using all her strength, she spat out a round bead from her mouth. "Be careful." Mo Lien flew forward and hugged his little wife. In the blink of an eye, the divine power bead exploded in front of everyone with a boom. The entire main hall of the underground palace was shaking in this tremor. The palace walls and round pillars all around cracked and collapsed one after another with creaking sounds. This scene happened very quickly. Before anyone could react, everyone felt their visions suddenly turn black. The collapsed bricks, stones, and dust all came crashing down on their heads. With a crackling sound, it covered everyone's figure. It wasn't until a long time later that someone coughed from the pile of dirt. "Jojo? Xian? Fatty, is everyone okay?" Cough, cough, cough. "We're fine." Duanmu Qing coughed several times as if he had choked on a mouthful of dust. His throat was a little dry. "Don't panic, everyone. Slowly dig a path and gather together," Instructor Wei Wei said in a low voice. "Pay attention to the corpse puppets around you." Thump, 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 thump. Arbor kicked away a large rock in front of her. She held the night illumination pearl and shone it forward. She immediately saw the dusty little fatty and Duanmu Qing. Duanmu Qing hurriedly ran forward and anxiously asked, "Jojo, are you okay?" He looked her up and down. Arbor shook her head. Hearing the commotion coming from the left, everyone made a gesture of waving their hands. Fortunately, it was not the corpse puppet lord that moved the huge rock away. It was little Tai Sui, Endless Blade, and the others. Everyone should be somewhere not far away. Dig away a bit of the soil and rocks above. Let everyone gather together first, then think of a way to dig out, Duanmu Qing said. Prince Mo nodded slightly. This place should not be far from the exit. If teleportation array glyphs were used, there would be many uncertainties. If we end up being teleported back to the tunnel we came from, we might as well dig a new one. Little Fatty nodded. "All right, let's do it then." 3 hours later, Sunlight Academy, Frostwind Academy, Honghu Academy, and the others were all dug out by Arbor. Chow Yun's face was covered in dust. He coughed a few times and cupped his hands towards Zhou Danjin and the others. "Many thanks." Cough, cough, cough. "What should we do now?" "I think I've found the way out. Now, I need everyone to work together and dig a tunnel." Mata crossed his arms and glanced at the people from the Sunlight Academy. "Is that okay?" "Of course." Cough, cough, cough. No problem." Chow Yen nodded repeatedly. The other instructors nodded in agreement. At this time, getting out was naturally the most important thing. Everyone followed the path that Mata had found and continued to dig the tunnel. The three of them dug together, and when they were tired, they would switch places with the other three. Fortunately, Miss Chiao provided them with an endless supply of food and water. Everyone was very grateful. The beasts were huge and were naturally not suited for such a narrow tunnel. However, one of the students from the Sunlight Academy had an earth-drilling mouse, which unexpectedly helped them a lot. After digging like this for 4 or 5 days, they finally reached the surface. They could faintly see a ray of sunlight shining in from the outside. That's it for today. Tomorrow will be normal. It's time to sleep. Chapter 1937. Everyone was very happy, and they continued to dig forward at a faster speed. The dawn was right in front of them, and everyone was full of fighting spirit. Under the urging of its master, the burrowing mouse did its best to push the soil and rocks in front of it to the sides of the tunnel. Everyone moved very quickly. They didn't care about the various spiritual tools that they had treasured so much, and they used them as tools for digging. That when they heard a dong-dong sound, the last piece of soil and rock in front of them was pushed away. Zhou Danjin bent his waist and crawled out of the hole. He looked up at the light flowing through the leaves and laughed loudly. I'm out." He jumped up with a whoosh and landed on a branch. Then Wei Wei, Little Fatty, Qi Xian, and the others also jumped out of the hole. Everyone came out of the hole one after another. They exhaled a long breath and looked at each other silently. "Oh my God, after so many days in history, I finally came out of that dark hole." Zhou Danjin tried to open his inner world, and he couldn't help but frown. I think we'd better leave this Daizong mountain as soon as possible. Everyone naturally nodded in agreement, but they cursed the bastard who came up with such a preliminary test in their hearts. If it weren't for Poland Prefecture's Heavenly Bestow Academy, who strongly advocated using such a novel method for the preliminary test, they wouldn't have had so much trouble. Among them, there were a few students who had lost their lives in this place. Heavenly Bestow Academy was simply shameless. Now that they thought about it, they just wanted to gather everyone's strength and get rid of the corpse puppets on the mountain behind the academy as soon as possible. Ayo! A hoarse roar came from the side, and a lock of drooping rotten flesh on a face suddenly enlarged in front of Little Fatty's eyes. Mother! Little Fatty casually raised the double-headed hammer in his hand, which was still stained with mud, and hit the corpse puppet's head with a dong-dong sound. Everyone was shocked and hurriedly attacked. Countless amounts of spiritual energy desperately smashed into the unlucky corpse puppet, blasting it into smithereens in a matter of minutes. Everyone looked around vigilantly, but they didn't find another corpse puppet. It seemed that this was just a fish that escaped the net. Zhou Danjin heaved a sigh of relief. This place is lush with foliage and isn't suitable for flying spirit beasts. We'll summon them after we get out of this area. Let's get on our way. He didn't know if there was any danger in this place. It won't be too late for us to rest after we get out of here, another mentor hurriedly said. All right. Everyone nodded in unison and hurried to catch up with the mentors. They hurried out of Daizong Mountain. Whoosh whoosh. However, before they could take a few steps, two black figures suddenly landed in front of them. Zhou Danjin and the others were startled. They quickly prepared for battle. Taking a closer look, they were the two old supervisors that they had seen before. Only then did Zhou Danjin and the others relax slightly. Wei Wei stepped forward and cupped his hands. Are the two of you waiting for us here? One of the black-robed old men nodded and smiled with relief. You're the only ones left. The two of us have been waiting for you here for a long time. Now, please follow us to the nearby Heavenly Academy to rest and adjust. Wei Wei heaved a sigh of relief and hurriedly thanked them. Thank you very much. Please. You've worked hard this time. The two old men nodded and turned to lead everyone away. Chapter 1938. The two elders were naturally familiar with the surroundings of Daizong Mountain. Soon, they led the crowd down a small path behind the mountain, which led directly to the back door of the Heavenly Academy. When the crowd followed the two supervising elders into the Heavenly Academy, they all breathed a sigh of relief. As far as the eye could see, the Heavenly Academy was shaded by trees, and the environment was excellent. Their nostrils were filled with the faint smell of fragrant grass, accompanied by a faint medicinal fragrance from the medicine tower. Now, you can see if you can use your mystic senses to open your inner worlds, the two elders said with a smile. Zhou Danjin and the others hurriedly tried, then nodded happily and said in unison, yes. That's good. The elder nodded and then told the crowd, in fact, in some special areas of Daizong Mountain, there grows a kind of tree that can block everyone's mystic senses and spiritual senses. We call it the shield tree. Previously, the double-headed dragon, the guardian beast of Daizong Mountain, fought with a strange creature, which caused the earth to shake and the mountain to shake, and the whole ground to collapse. Most people were evacuated from the mountain, but a small number of people, including you, were swept into the underground cave at the bottom of the mountain. The dean sent several elders to guard the entrances and exits, intending to bring you out as soon as they saw you. A few days later, the rest of the people also came out in batches. Only your few teams were able to wait until today for the two of us to see. Speaking of which, in 3 days, the semi-finals of the Academy ranking competition will begin. You came out just in time. Everyone suddenly realized why their spiritual sense had been unable to be used after they had entered the underground. Perhaps, in the depths of the ground, there happened to be something like the roots of the shield tree, which happened to be within its range. So, we've all passed the preliminaries? A student from the Sunlight Academy asked excitedly. The elder nodded to them with certainty. Of course, you've already destroyed the entire underground base of undead puppets. You're the only one with such a great contribution. There is no doubt that you all passed the preliminaries. Only then did everyone rejoice. Originally, when they came out, they were still secretly cursing in their hearts. At that time, they were too preoccupied with fighting and did not have time to collect the remains of the corpse puppets. There was no evidence to prove that they had killed so many corpse puppets. Hearing this, Arbor poured out a large pile of bones from the storage talisman with a crash. He said expressionlessly, "Why didn't you say so earlier?" She even had to clean up so much useless trash. It was simply polluting her storage talisman. Everyone was speechless. It was unknown who was the first to burst out laughing. Everyone else couldn't resist laughing out loud at once. Now that they came back to their senses and looked at this little stoic, they actually felt that she had lost some of her viciousness. Instead, she was infinitely cute and adorable. It was simply too comical. It turned out that this little stoic hadn't forgotten to clean up the bones of these zombies for them while she was fighting. Although she didn't say anything, she had considered everything for them. He was worried that they would not be able to hand over the bones after spending so much effort to kill the zombie, and their results would be erased. All the students cupped their hands at her and said with a chuckle, "Thank you very much." However, the little stoic abruptly turned her small face away and muttered expressionlessly, "It's not like I picked them up for you. You're flattering yourself." Chapter 1939. The little girl's Tsundra disease was acting up again. Everyone smiled helplessly and followed the two supervisors to the designated dormitory areas for their respective students. Each academy was allocated a small courtyard. Although it wasn't particularly big, it was slightly cramped. Staying there for 2 or 3 days was no problem at all. Arbor and Qi Xianxian shared a room. The other rooms were randomly allocated by the men. Seeing Prince Mo's aggrieved expression before leaving, Miss Qiao couldn't help but secretly laugh in her heart. Qi Xianxian tidied herself up and came out from the inner room. She dragged a stool and sat in front of Arbor. With a serious expression, she said, "Jojo, why don't I stay outside and let your lotus stay here?" Arbor was flipping through the spoils of war he brought back from Mount Dai Zone. Hearing this, he didn't even raise his head and said, "No need." They should have already arranged the accommodations. They would only stay for 1 or 2 days. The semifinals wouldn't be held in Heavenly Bestow Academy. Thus, after resting for 1 or 2 nights, they would be leaving for the semifinals soon. I knew Jojo was the best. He definitely wouldn't choose a lover over a friend. Qi Xianxian was immediately revived and said with a smile. Seeing that Arbor ignored her and focused on picking out the items and putting them into other storage talismans, Qi Xianxian couldn't help but ask. Curiously, "What are these materials and the crystal cores of these corpse puppets used for?" "For my lotus," Arbor said calmly. Qi Xianxian instantly felt as if she had been shot in the chest. She raised her hand to cover her chest and pretended to shout, "Hey, hey, hey, can't you stop for a moment? Would it kill him to not show off his love for a day?" Arbor raised his little face and winked at her. "He's a divine weapon master. Holy shit, it can't be?" To be honest, Qi Xianxian, had never seen a legendary divine weapon master in her life. Qi Xianxian hurriedly turned her small face and dragged a stool to Arbor's side. "Look, if you're free, why don't you ask your lotus to modify this low-level spiritual sword of mine?" Arbor glanced at her and nodded reluctantly. "Let's rest for a couple of days. He's been pretty tired lately." Qi Xianxian chuckled and nodded. Of course. "Jojo, what's the use of the crystal cores in these corpse puppets?" "It's useful for people with special abilities. People with special abilities can absorb these cores to improve their abilities." Arbor's hand paused as he picked up the cores. Come to think of it, she should be able to use this to improve her psychokinesis, right? Thinking of this, he kept a few small pieces of crystal nuclei, intending to absorb them himself. Most of them were stored in a storage talisman together with the refining materials. He jumped up and said, "I'm going to find my lotus." Qi Xianxian, duh. "So what if you have a husband?" Arbor ran to the door and did not forget to turn around and stab Qi Xianxian in the back. "Xianxian, if you take a fancy to any good man, remember to tell me." The little fellow said to her in an experienced tone, "I'll keep an eye out for you." Qi Xianxian felt very angry. She silently watched as the little fellow flew away like a little butterfly, flying far away. Stinky girl. Qi Xianxian puffed up her cheeks and glanced at the little fellow's departing figure in annoyance. She thought to herself, "Stinky girl, if only you were this happy every day." Previously, when she found those corpses in the underground prison, her frantic look was really heart-wrenching. Chapter 1940. Arbor walked out of his room and happened to come face to face with Prince Emo. "Here you go." Arbor stuffed the storage talisman into Emolien's hands and expressionlessly said, "Lotus for me." Emolien looked down at the storage talisman in her hand. When she saw that it was filled to the brim with corpse puppet cores and all kinds of refining materials, she couldn't help but be moved and pull the little guy into her arms. His little thing was always thinking about him. The corpse puppet cores she collected weren't for her own use at all. They were all collected for him. Standing off to the side, Limitless Blade, who was comparable to 1,000 candles, curled his lips and said, "I used to have a dozen wives, and they also revolved around me every day. They gave me this and that to please me." Little Tai Sui, who was sitting at a small stone table and sipping tea, sneered, "Then what about now?" Dao Wuji snorted, "Don't worry. With my appearance, it's not difficult for me to find 8 or 10 more wives for her." Little Tai Sui snorted disdainfully. "For someone like you, no matter how many wives you have, it's useless. When your wives see you like this, don't say anything. Sooner or later, none of them will be left." "What did you say?" Limitless Blade blew his beard and glared. "What do you mean by, I like this? How could I not have a single wife left?" As the two bickered, Miss Chiao turned to glare at Limitless Blade. "Shut up. You talkative king. Long-winded." Little Tai Sui laughed and glanced at Limitless Blade. "Did you hear that? Talkative king, long-winded. Sigh, you two should stop bickering. Come, Limitless Blade, have a cup of tea and cool down." Ma Yingchen sat at the stone table and pushed a cup of tea toward Limitless Blade. "Seriously, little Tai Sui is right. What's the point of having so many wives? You might as well find a wife and get along well with her. Isn't that better? What do people like you who have never had a wife know?" Limitless Blade huffed and picked up the teacup and drained it in one gulp. "A wife is also a part of a man's strength. Do you understand? Just like him." Dao Wuji secretly pointed in Prince Mo's direction. "My boss is a man of striking appearance. He should be an elegant and romantic person. It's not a problem for him to have 2 beauties in his arms. But now? How are things now?" A faint voice entered Endless Blade's ears. Dao Wuji did not know that he was courting death. With his back to the young couple, he kept talking, now. He was simply a pitiful henpecked husband. "This is too embarrassing for us men." Before he could finish his sentence, he was kicked from behind and fell onto the stone table in front of Ma Shichen. Miss Chiao did not say another word and gave Dao Wuji a violent beating. The venerable Peach Blossom Immortal passed him a feather duster. Use this. Jojo, don't hurt your hand." Prince Emo shook his head helplessly. "You asked for it." Little Tai Sui coughed lightly and picked up the teapot and teacup. He dodged to the side and poured himself a cup of tea. After taking a sip, he said, "As the saying goes, you can survive a heavenly disaster, but you can't survive a self-inflicted disaster." "Oh, don't hit me anymore." "Hey, if you hit me again, I will retaliate." "Return it." Prince Emo threatened coldly from the side. Dao Wuji immediately fell silent. He hugged his head and scurried around, crying pitifully. Chapter 1941. Hey, sister-in-law. Stop it. I was wrong. Dao Wuji immediately surrendered. What a joke. If he dared to fight back, he would definitely become the target of Prince Mo and the venerable Chang Xian. He would be stupid to fight back. "Alright, it's getting late. Don't make a fuss. Go back to your rooms and rest." Instructor Wei Wei's roar came from the room across from them. Arbor resentfully retracted his little hand, snorted, and waved his little paw at Prince M. "Then I'll go back first." Emolian nodded. Only after his phoenix eyes watched his wifey return to her room did he retract his gaze. He turned to look at the bruised and swollen Wuji and asked with a smile, "Don't worry, after we return to the divine province, you can have as many wives as you want." For some reason, Dao Wuji looked at Prince Mo's unfathomable expression and shuddered for no reason. Why did he feel like this kid was secretly plotting against him? Dao Wuji extended a paw. I think so. As a matter of fact, having a good wife was enough. Prince Mo patted him on the shoulder, glanced at him indifferently, and then turned to go back to his room. Seeing this, Yuan Shurchen sympathetically gave Dao Wuji a good luck look and followed Prince Mo back to his room to rest. Dao Wuji hurriedly turned to look at little Tai Sui. "Little Tai Sui, don't you think that boss's gaze is a bit strange? He said that when we return to China, he would arrange a wife for me. What does that mean?" Little Tai Sui looked at Dao Wuji as if he was an idiot. "Won't you know when you go to China?" Dao Wuji thought about it. Little Tai Sui's words did make some sense. It was useless for him to fret here. Not only would it not make any difference, it would seem like he was worrying about nothing. Little Tai Sui. Little? Dao Wuji watched as the little rascal left him behind and returned to his room without looking back. He couldn't help but look at the empty courtyard. With his head drooping, he pitifully walked away. After a night of rest, everyone felt much more refreshed by the next day. After working hard for so many days, Instructor Wei Wei gave everyone a day off so that they could do whatever they wanted. If they wanted to continue resting in the courtyard, they could stay in their rooms for the rest of the day. If they wanted to go out for a walk, they could go together. How could Qi Xianxian be idle? Once she heard that it was free time, she immediately pulled arbor and planned to take a stroll around the Heavenly Bestowing Academy. "We've destroyed Dai Zong Mountain and the entire underground base of the corpse puppets. Do you think we'll be rewarded?" Xiao Mu was currently pondering something, so she didn't say anything when she heard this. She only regained her senses when Qi Xianxian tugged at her. She looked up at Qi Xianxian. "Hey, I've been talking to you for so long, but you've been daydreaming." Qi Xianxian glanced at her speechlessly. "What are you thinking about?" Arbor was thinking about Fan Qiuhe. What did Fan Qiuhe do to be able to build such a large corpse breeding ground under Dai Zong Mountain? Could it be that he was also a member of the Heavenly Fate Organization? If Fan Qiuhe was a member of the Heavenly Fate Organization, then everything that happened before seemed to make sense. Tian Yun, this evil cult, had always used humans as their research subjects. Chapter 1942. What Tian Yun had been doing was simply to study the human body and create extraordinary experts. Instead of calling the nocturnal caw bird a poison, it would be better to call it a drug that radically changed the human body. Survival of the fittest, natural selection. In the end, after generations of spreading the powder, it would probably only cultivate the strongest person. Those who could adapt would speed up the change. Those who could not adapt would probably only become a foundation like a corpse puppet. From the looks of it, Fan Qiuhe's experiment on a small scale was similar to what Tian Yun had done. They were both studying the human body. Fan Qiuhe was probably only studying for himself. He wanted to obtain information from others on how to become stronger, including how to grow his inner world, how to strengthen his spiritual sense, and so on. Therefore, he had been nurturing his puppet dolls in that underground prison all this time. There was no doubt that Fan Qiuhe was Tian Yun's man. However, Arbor still did not know who was in charge of Fan Qiuhe. The matter of going to Clear Sky Valley seemed to be imminent. However, the competition concerned Little Tree's life, so she could not relax. "Jojo?" When Qi Xianxian saw that Xiao Mu was keeping her head down and not saying anything, she didn't want to disturb Xiao Mu's thoughts. However, there was a group of people blocking their path, so Qi Xianxian had no choice but to call out to her and tug at Xiao Mu's sleeve. Arbor turned to look at Qi Xianxian. "Are we going back?" Qi Xianxian shook her head. "No. Jojo, look." Qi Xianxian gently tugged at the corner of her sleeve and pointed at the group of people blocking the spacious road ahead. The road on the campus of Heavenly Bestow Academy was quite spacious. There was no problem for 5 or 6 people to walk side by side. However, at this moment, there were a dozen people in front of them, blocking the road in a row. "What do you want?" Arbor asked with a frown. A girl in green took the lead and stepped forward. She first sized her up, then asked, "You're the great talisman master who can draw storage talismans, right?" Arbor frowned slightly. She sized up the girl and asked with a stoic face, "What do you want?" "Sir, can you draw a storage talisman for me?" The woman suddenly knelt in front of her and clasped her hands in front of her chest. She looked at her with a pair of pitiful eyes and shouted anxiously, "I am willing to use spirit tools or medicinal herbs to exchange for it. Please give me a storage talisman." Arbor was speechless that the little girl thought that someone had come to look for trouble again. She was puzzled in her heart. How could she have enemies in the heaven-bestowing academy? "Please give me a storage talisman." The dozen or so people knelt down in unison and cupped their hands in a pleading manner. Qi Xuanxuan's mouth twitched. She thought they were here to cause trouble, but they were just a bunch of idiots. "Sir, please accept our request, Your Excellency." Arbor's face was expressionless. He looked up at the sky and pondered. "Storage talismans take the good fortune of the heavens and are very difficult to draw." "Understood, understood, understood." Everyone nodded and said, "We're willing to wait in line. 1 month, 3 months, half a year, even a year would be good. Please don't reject us. What do you want? Just name your price." Arbor nodded slightly. "Then please wait for a moment. I'll draw up a list of items for exchange for you." "Yes, yes, yes. Thank you, Your Excellency. See you tomorrow." Chapter 1943. Master, feel free to tell us what you need or what materials you need. We lowly ones will definitely, take care of everything no matter how big or small. We will definitely help Master properly. The little stoic gave a deep... She nodded slightly with one hand behind her back. Everyone scrambled to take out the tables, chairs, stools, paper, and pens they had prepared beforehand from their inner worlds and handed them to Arbor so that she could draw up a list of materials to exchange for a storage talisman. Everyone held the list like it was a treasure and had a rough idea after looking through it. They planned to work together to gather a set of materials to exchange for a storage talisman first. The list will be changed once a month. Next month, it might not be the same materials. The little stoic said aloofly, "Find her to sign up and gather the materials within a month after signing up. Otherwise, we won't wait." Arbor pointed at student Qi Xianxian, whose mouth was agape, and left with a flick of her sleeves. Everyone instantly surrounded Qi Xianxian so tightly that not even a drop of water could trickle through. Student Qi Xianxian looked dumbfoundedly at the little stoic who abandoned her and ran off first. Her small face was conflicted as she silently cursed, "You brat, are you sure you're not tired of running?" As expected, Master has the demeanor of a master. A female student from Heavenly Bestow Academy praised with admiration, "We have to gather the materials as soon as possible. At least one set of materials. I heard that the space inside Master's storage talisman is rather large." "Too awesome." Everyone surrounded student Qi Xianxian, who wanted to cry but had no tears, and chattered for a long time. At this time, Arbor had already slipped back to the small courtyard. At Prince Mo's door, she encountered Mo Lien and He Shurchen, who happened to be coming out. Miss Qiao cheered and bounced forward. "Let's go. Didn't you go out with Qi Xianxian?" He Shurchen curiously looked behind her. "Where did you throw Qi Xianxian?" "She's very busy. As Master's assistant, she has to take care of some chores." "Master?" The two men glanced at her. "Which master?" The little stoic patted her chest. "Master Qiao." Prince Mo and the venerable Peach Blossom Immortal couldn't help but laugh. The two of them, who were familiar with the young lady's temperament, immediately knew that Qi Xianxian, this unlucky child, was most likely tricked by Miss Qiao. Amused, Prince Mo reached out and hooked her pinky finger. "Let's go." The three of them left the courtyard and walked along a small path towards the Heavenly Academy's garden. Arbor couldn't help but shed a tear of sympathy for himself as he looked at the others' academy and thought of his own dilapidated top-notch academy. Although the name of this top-tier academy sounded resounding in terms of facilities, architecture, and reputation, it couldn't even compare to a small third-rate academy in the 6 prefectures continent at the very least. A third-rate academy would have a signboard, a gate, or something like that. The dormitories of the students were not like the ones in the top-tier academies, where there was only a small lump of dirt and nothing else. Arbor shook his head, only to see 3 or 4 students hurriedly running towards him, their faces full of excitement as they shouted, "Let's go, let's go, let's go to the ring and have a look. I heard that 2 senior sisters from the 3rd years are having a public duel there today." "Which 2 from the 3rd years?" When an excited girl ran past Arbor, she almost bumped into her shoulder. Prince Mo reacted swiftly and scooped his wifey into his arms to avoid her. Chapter 1944. The girl was taken aback. She turned to say sorry before her gaze landed on the 3 of them. These 3 people's appearances were simply too outstanding. Prince Mo, who was dressed in black, and the venerable Peach Blossom Immortal, who was dressed in a demonic red robe, were simply heaven-defying, peerless, and unparalleled. In front of the 2 of them stood a little girl who looked like a little jade sculpture carved from ice. She was looking at them. The girl hurriedly smiled in embarrassment. "Sorry, I almost bumped into you." Arbor shook her head, indicating that it was fine. The girl smiled. Just as she was about to turn and leave, she suddenly turned to them and said, "You are, students from the other academies, right? If you don't have anything to do, you can come with us to the arena area to watch. The 2 senior sisters are having a martial arts competition there today. It should be quite exciting." Arbor nodded. The girls glanced at them again, then hurriedly left. Arbor pursed her lips. "I don't like to watch a show." 15 minutes later, the 3 of them stood in front of the arena area, occupying an advantageous position. Xiao Mu's eyebrows curved slightly as she watched the 2 women's swords crisscrossing each other on the stage. She exclaimed softly, "You're all classmates. What kind of deep-seated hatred do you have for your moves to be so sharp?" Miss Xiao, who didn't like to watch a show, quietly took out an orange from her pocket. She peeled it and commented, "Isn't her move too fierce?" Ma Yingxin and Prince Mo were somewhat helpless. It's a life-and-death battle to begin with. It's either you die or I die. What? Miss Xiao's eyes widened slightly. You can have a life-and-death battle in the academy? Forgive their academy for only having 8 students. Everyone was quite friendly. She had never heard of a life-and-death battle between students. "Look, there's a life-and-death contract over there." Ma Yingxin pointed her chin at a spot not far away. Arbor looked over and realized that there was indeed a large piece of red paper pasted on the stool at the edge of the arena. The 3 words, "life and death contract," were written on it. There was also the blood contract imprint of the 2 people. Miss Xiao's hand, which was holding the orange, paused. She looked at the 2 young women on the stage and shook her head. "What a pity." Ma Shurchen reached out and took half of the orange from her hand. As he ate, he said, "What's there to pity? In the end, it's all about fate. If they want to sign the life and death agreement, then they have to follow the rules of the heavenly Tao. Even if they don't die, one of them has to die." Miss Xiao blinked. "So it's only when one of them dies that the victor will be decided? Smart." Prince Mo nodded and took the other half of the orange, praising it. Miss Xiao looked down and saw that it was empty. The peeled oranges in his hands all fell into the mouths of others. "My master said that it's best to have something to eat while watching the competition. That way, one's mood will be better," Miss Xiao suddenly said as she took out a banana from her inner world. "You mean, Her Excellency Dark Phoenix?" Prince Mo was slightly startled as he asked. "Yes. You remember now?" Mo Lien couldn't help but ask softly. "Remember what?" Nothing." Arbor shook his head with a distressed expression. "It's just that I occasionally remember that Master said this before." "You'll remember slowly." Prince Mo raised his hand and patted her head. At this moment, the victor had already been decided on the arena. It should be said that one of the women had fallen to the ground and died. Chapter 1945. In an instant, the life and death contract hanging in front of the arena automatically burned to ashes. Arbor looked at the girl who died in the arena and shook her head. A familiar voice suddenly sounded in her ear. Hey, this little sister, can you tell me what kind of deep hatred these two senior sisters have for them to have a life and death battle in the arena? Hey, little fatty bro, you'll find it funny even if I tell you. These two senior sisters liked the same senior brother at the same time, and that senior brother was wavering between the two of them. In the end, these two senior sisters made this agreement in order to fight over that man. Wow, your academy even encourages male and female students to form partners. Little fatty bro, don't talk nonsense, of course the academy doesn't encourage it. Come here, I'll tell you this, you can't pass it on to others. Arbor stretched her little neck to take a look, and saw little Fatty surrounded by 3 or 4 gorgeously dressed little sisters, going to the side to inquire for information. She suddenly understood why that guy Ko Hongjin of the Ko family was so jealous of little Fatty. Needless to say, although the little Fatty was chubby, his round and chubby face was quite cute, and he was very popular with girls. Little Fatty's popularity had always been good among women. Arbor turned to Prince Emo and Jichin, saying, "Let's go, we're going back." The excitement was over, and there was no fun in this crowd of people. The 3 of them squeezed out of the crowd, and not long after, another pair of male and female came on stage to spar, and the atmosphere in front of the arena was stirred up again. "Senior sister Yugue, what are you looking at?" Jiangqi walked to Yugue's side and asked in a low voice. When she came over, she saw Yugue standing alone outside the crowd, staring blankly in a direction, not knowing what she was in a daze for. Yugue was slightly startled, and then she recovered and shook her head. I probably saw wrongly. Impossible. Let's go." "What's impossible? What did you see?" Yugue laughed bitterly. "When I came over just now, I must have seen wrongly, and mistook a figure for little junior sister." "Junior sister?" Jiangqi muttered to himself and sighed. "Junior sister should be 15 this year." Yugue replied indifferently, "Although junior apprentice sister is talented and intelligent, she is in the lower star field. If she wants to come to the 6 prefectures continent, she will have to climb the stairway to heaven. No matter how talented she is, it's only been 3 years. It's impossible." "That's right." Jiangqi nodded. "Senior sister, we also need to go back and prepare. Just now, the instructor came to inform me that we'll be leaving tomorrow morning." "All right." Yugue turned around and said, "Let's go. Let's go back and prepare. This time, we must obtain the qualifications to cultivate in Spirit Realm on Brinset Island." This meant that each and every one of them had to enter the top 100 in the Academy's ranking competition. They had a blood feud on their backs, and they urgently needed to improve themselves. Time waits for no one. Only by working hard could they live up to the kindness and nurturing of the sect. Arbor, Emo Lien, and Hichin returned to their small courtyard. The moment they opened the door, they saw the 5 instructors gathered in front of the stone table, waiting for them. Qi Xianxian turned around and looked at her pitifully, with a pitiful look. Chapter 1946. Duanmu, Mata, and the others also stood in front of the stone table. Other than the little Fatty, who was probably still chatting with the big sisters, everyone else had arrived. I received notice that the people from Heavenly Bestow Academy will head to the venue first tomorrow. We from the other academies will head over a bit later and can depart at noon. Wei Wei swept them a glance. "So everyone, make your own preparations tonight and have a good night's rest." Everyone nodded. Zhou Danjing glanced at them and asked suspiciously, "Where's the Fatty? Why haven't I seen him the whole day?" Everyone silently looked at each other without uttering a word. "That's enough. You've been outside for the whole day. Rest early and don't cause trouble. As for the Fatty, when you see him come back, tell him that you should all go back and rest." Everyone looked up at the clear sky. Strictly speaking, it was only the afternoon right now. However, Instructor Wei Wei said that they had been outside for the whole day and even told them to go back to their rooms to rest early. "Do you want to eat a good meal tonight?" Arbor suddenly asked. When Zhou Danjin thought of the dishes that the little fellow brought, he was about to drool. He nodded repeatedly and said, Yes, I'll order a dish, beggar's chicken. I'll order braised pork ribs. I want winter melon." I want to eat prawns, prawns. Xian, this foodie, almost drooled at the thought of fried prawns. The little stoic expressionlessly rolled her eyes at them and harumphed, I'm not a restaurant, before trotting back to her room. Sleep early, you won't be able to digest if you eat too much. You. Everyone bit their handkerchiefs and hatefully watched her departing figure. They really wanted to gang up on this little fellow and beat her up. Why the heck did she suggest adding more dishes but not add more in the end? Wasn't she teasing them? Prince Mo waved his hand in amusement and returned to his room. When night fell, everyone sighed and took out the white steamed buns from their pockets, planning to make do with some pickled vegetables. They didn't expect to hear the little stoic's crisp voice. Aren't you all coming out to eat? Everyone scrambled to get out of the door and saw the rich dishes on the stone table at a glance. Afterwards, they saw that hateful little stoic, dressed in light green casual clothes, was currently sitting in front of the stone table with Prince Mo, looking at them expressionlessly. Xuan's fried prawns, Mata's braised pork ribs, and senior brother Lu's winter melon soup. Teacher Zhou's beggar's chicken. Wow, ordering food is really useful. Everyone gathered around him, feeling so happy that they were about to fly. Little Fatty slowly returned. The moment he pushed open the courtyard door, he saw everyone eating and fighting around a stone table. The chopsticks were like raindrops as they ate happily. He hurriedly closed the door behind him and rushed forward to yell, "Oh my God, why didn't you wait for me to eat? Who knows how long you're going to chat with those big sisters? Let's go, let me have a seat. Stop pushing. Everyone has a share." Arbor looked at this group of people reincarnated from starvation and speechlessly raised his hand. Everyone, move aside. Soon after, he took out a wash-basin-sized soup bowl from his inner world and placed it in front of everyone. It was filled with spirit bamboo shoots and fresh meat soup. A dense aura of spiritual power spread out in the small courtyard. Heavens! Hurry and move aside, I'll have a bowl first. Little Fatty yelled and rushed to scoop up a bowl full of soup. He held the bowl and drank it while praising it incessantly. Chapter 1947. Hey Jojo, what kind of bamboo shoots are these? I feel like my spiritual power is flowing away as soon as I eat them. I'm so full today. Who's going to take a walk with me later? Then why are you still eating? I'll digest after I finish eating. Jojo, I think you're amazing. You can have anything you want. We'll just take you wherever we go in the future. We don't need to take anything else. Arbor glanced at the little Fatty expressionlessly. In your dreams. Everyone enjoyed the meal. Even Instructor Wei Wei, who had always been serious, showed a rare smile. Ani Prefecture. The prefecture master, Guan Zhang, looked coldly at his fourth daughter who was lying on the sickbed. Prefecture master. A middle-aged man walked in quickly and saluted. Fourth Miss, why did you suddenly come back? The fourth Miss of the Guan family represented Jiaqing Academy and went to Daizhong Mountain in Polan Prefecture to participate in the preliminaries. She suddenly came back with serious injuries, which surprised everyone. What a piece of trash. Guan Zhaotang snorted. She won't amount to much. The middle-aged man, Qi Lianhai, silently glanced at the young woman on the sickbed. Guan Ying's original appearance could no longer be seen. Half of her face seemed to have exploded, and her skin and flesh were all exposed. His two eyes had long since turned into two holes, and his eyeballs could no longer be seen. It's useless to keep such a piece of trash. Guan Zhaotang said coldly, dispose of her. Yes, Prefecture Master. Qi Lianhai lowered his head and responded. He couldn't help but feel a little emotional. The fourth Miss risked her life and used her last breath to contact her family, who helped her open a special passage and ran back. In the end, she was inevitably treated as a piece of trash. Guan Zhaotang had 6 daughters and 3 sons. He was in the prime of his life and had many wives and concubines around him. He could have as many children as he wanted. Naturally, he couldn't raise a piece of trash to make things difficult for him. What was the point? If that was the case, he might as well die outside. Qi Lianhai shook his head. After watching Guan Zhaoting leave with a cold expression, he walked forward and cupped his hands in salute to the fourth young miss who was lying on the sickbed. My apologies, fourth young miss. Qi Lianhai reached out and grabbed Guan Ying's neck. He released a bit of spirit power from his hand and held Guan Ying for a moment. Guan Ying struggled fiercely for less than 3 seconds. Her kicking legs gradually slowed down, and finally she stopped breathing. Qi Lianhai tidied up his clothes, turned around, and walked out of the door. He cupped his hands towards Guan Zhaoting, who was standing in front of the door with his back facing him, and said, "Manor Lord, it's been settled. Do you want me to send someone to Poland Manor to investigate the situation?" Guan Zhaoting coldly snorted, "Although little Four is a useless trash, she is still my daughter. Whoever did this to her, I will naturally make them pay the price." Qi Lianhai turned around and went out, immediately gathering people. "Daughter, my daughter." A mournful scream came from outside the door. A beautiful woman wearing a small white flower on her head staggered into the room and grabbed Guan Zhaoting's sleeve. "Master, this concubine heard that Ying has just returned with serious injuries. Can this concubine?" Guan Zhaotang impatiently pulled back his sleeve. "Go take a look at her for the last time. Later, choose a day to burn her." The woman immediately paled and fell to the ground. Chapter 1948. The semifinals were arranged to be held at the Shenghua Gladiator Arena, which was the closest to the Buren Sea. In the past, the semifinals and finals were generally held at the Shenghua Gladiator Arena. Firstly, it was customary. Secondly, Shenghua was outside of the 6 prefectures, so the referees at the Shenghua Gladiator Arena were more impartial. Thirdly, the Gladiator Arena's geographical location was good. After the competition ended, the winning students could immediately board a ship at the Buren Sea and sail to Brinthet Island. The participating students were all teams that stood out after the first round of auditions. Naturally, everyone's face carried a bit of arrogance. When Zhou Danjin brought the students from the top academies to Shenghua City, it was about noon on the second day. Everyone first made arrangements for their accommodation. The inns they chose were naturally close to the Shenghua Gladiator Arena. This way, it would be more convenient for them to go back and forth every day. There were quite a few inns around the Shenghua Gladiator Arena. During the qualifiers, all the inns would rack their brains to attract customers. Arbor and the others found a relatively large Anping Inn and booked all the rooms on the 3rd floor. This way, everyone could live more comfortably. Anping Inn also provided food, but the prices were obviously very expensive. After eating dinner, everyone unanimously decided that they shouldn't waste spirit coins blindly. It would be better to eat Miss Chiao's food in the future. The next day, everyone was ready to go. Early in the morning, they gathered on the 1st floor of the inn, full of energy. Along with the sound of the stairs, several teams came down from the 2nd floor. Some students curiously sized up Arbor and the others. When they checked in, they had already heard that the 3rd floor was booked by a nouveau riche academy. So it was them? Huh, hey, isn't this Instructor Wei Wei? I really didn't expect that a lousy academy like the top academies would have the guts to book the entire 3rd floor. They must have borrowed money. A slightly ear-piercing voice came from the stairs. Instructor Wei Wei, Zhou Danjin, and a few other instructors just happened to walk down the stairs. When their gazes fell on the young man who mocked them, their faces immediately darkened. Arbor and the others naturally didn't recognize the man who mocked them. He sized him up and saw that the man's appearance could be considered decent, but his eyes were filled with mockery and ridicule when he looked at Instructor Wei Wei. "Zhao Li," Instructor Wei Wei said in a deep voice, "you have no right to interfere in the matters of the top academies." Scram. Xiao Mu and the other students were a bit surprised. In their impression, although Instructor Wei Wei was a serious person and sometimes had a sharp tongue, he would never treat others so rudely. This man called Zhao Li in front of him seemed to have quite a grudge with Instructor Wei Wei. Zhao Li turned a deaf ear to Wei Wei's cursing. He even shrugged nonchalantly. "Fortunately, I graduated from your top-notch academy a step earlier. Otherwise, until now, I would still be." "Oh, isn't this the academy's #1 genius, Duan Muqing? TSK, you're still in the academy." "Alright. You have to accumulate 3,000 points in a year to graduate. Otherwise, you'll have to study endlessly. How could I forget? Zhao Li laughed loudly as he walked to Duanmu Qing's side. He placed a hand on his shoulder and said, Duanmu, have you ever thought of changing schools? Duanmu Qing slapped his hand away. See you tomorrow. Chapter 1949. I'm not that familiar with you, Duanmu Qing said indifferently with a cold expression. Haha. Zhao Li wasn't angry. He crossed his arms carelessly and cast a sidelong glance at the people from Premier Academy. Yo, the number of students seems to have increased by quite a bit. These two junior sisters, did you just enter a top-notch academy? You too, don't be fooled by Premier Academy at such a young age. Don't think that just because it's called Premier Academy, it's the best academy in the 6 prefectures continent. Actually, this academy is at the very bottom of all the academies, ha. Bam! When Xiaomu saw that person walking in front of her and Qi Xianxian while bragging so much that his saliva was about to spray onto their faces, she immediately kicked out in disdain, causing that person to stumble back several steps. Stay away from us. Arbor angrily wiped her face with her sleeve. You're dirty and smelly. You're already an adult, but you can't control your saliva. Scram. Scram, scram, scram. Everyone. Zhao Li's face instantly flushed red, and he flew into a rage out of humiliation. Although he didn't look very outstanding, his cultivation was very strong. In Flying Flower Academy, he was the target of many female students. When had he ever been treated like this by a girl? Was this person still a girl? Did she have any taste at all? Arbor was someone who even disdained young Master Ding, who was as beautiful as a flower, for being smelly. She even detested the 2 magnificent young masters of the Qin family, not to mention this average-looking man in front of her. In Miss Xiao's opinion, this strange blabbermouth was even noisier than Boundless Saber in front of her and Xianxian. He was simply a big idiot. Prince Mo silently twitched his mouth. Everyone lit a row of candles for this Zhao Li in their hearts. How pitiful! Courting death by provoking Jojo, what else could it be other than asking for a snub? You. Zhao Li felt pain in his calf from the stoic-faced girl's kick, but he couldn't bend down to rub his calf because of his pride. He could only glare hatefully at Arbor with a stiff face and say angrily, You don't know what's good for you. This young master was just reminding you out of goodwill. I advise you not to take detours. Do you really think that a top-notch academy like this can really become a top-notch existence in the 6 prefectures? It's not up to you to decide whether or not he's a top-notch existence in the 6 prefectures. Let's see after the competition. So long-winded and full of nonsense. Where did this idiot come from? Scram. Arbor roared. Qi Xianxian and Little Fatty picked up their weapons at the same time and were about to rush up and smash Zhao Li. Zhao Li was so frightened that he retreated 2 steps back with a face full of panic. He felt that he simply couldn't get along with this bunch of crazy students from a top academy. Young students nowadays, why the fuck did they act like they wanted to? I'm too lazy to talk to you. In the future, you will suffer. Zhao Li's face was red with anger. He angrily flicked his sleeves and turned around. Just as he was about to step out of the door, his left leg went soft, and with a potch sound he knelt in front of the door. His head heavily knocked against the doorframe, leaving a red mark on the spot. The teams that had gathered at the entrance and were about to leave were all shocked by his actions. Following which, they roared with laughter. A female disciple from another academy held her belly in laughter and pointed at Zhao Li, who was kneeling on the ground with a flushed face. Oh my, the little girl was right. He really is a big idiot. Chapter 1950. Senior Brother Zhao. The team leader, Gu Lioli, hurriedly ordered people to help him up and supported the limping Zhao Li out of the door. Before she left, she turned around to glare at Arbor and the others and said, Does the top academy dare to accept Soaring Flower Academy's challenge in this competition? You don't have the right. Arbor coldly swept her a glance. What right does a mere level 1 spirit master have to challenge us? Scram. Everyone instantly couldn't laugh anymore. If the stoic-faced little girl could say that, It meant that her own strength was definitely much higher than a level 1 spirit master's. She dared to arrogantly tell a level 1 spirit master to scram. Perhaps she wouldn't do such a thing if she didn't have some skills. You guys. Gu Lioli was about to explode in anger. She glared hatefully at the people from the top academy and dejectedly supported Zhao Li out under everyone's gazes. A bunch of baffling people. Qi Xianxian pursed her lips and turned her gaze to Zhou Danjin, whose expression was unclear. Instructor, who exactly are they? Zhou Danjin sighed. Let's talk as we walk. Today was the first day of the semifinals, so it wasn't good to be late. When everyone exited Tranquil Inn, Zhou Danjin glanced at Instructor Wei Wei, who was walking at the back of the group, and then said to Arbor and the others, Student Xiao, you must have thought that Instructor Wei Wei was targeting you from the start, right? Arbor nodded without hesitation. That's right. If it weren't for her good temper, this Instructor Wei Wei would have been beaten up by her 800 years ago. Zhou Danjin speechlessly glanced at this honest child. Actually, your Instructor Wei Wei once accepted a student with pretty good talent. It's just that this student was born in an aristocratic family and had an excellent family background, so he was very arrogant. Later on, because he looked down on our shabby academy, he betrayed the academy during a very important competition. From then on, your Instructor Wei Wei became much more depressed, and he became a man of few words. When we accepted students in the future, what we valued was no longer the student's talent, but their moral character. Student Xiao, your birth is too good. When you first came to our academy peak, you flew over on an ancient phoenix. Zhou Danjin glanced at her and said, everyone knows very well that you must have an extraordinary family background. Wait, let me interrupt. Arbor could not help but interrupt. I don't have any family background. I'm just a poor child from a small family in the lower star field. All right, you can continue. Everyone was speechless. Why did they want to laugh so badly? This was clearly a very serious topic. Teacher Zhou's mouth twitched speechlessly. Of course, he didn't want to argue with this lousy child about whether she had a strong family background or not. Instead, he continued, when you first came to our school, you had a fight with Hua. Speaking of this, Hua Tao couldn't help but cover his face. Could he stop talking about such an embarrassing thing? That arrogant aura, as well as that thick aura of a young lady from a powerful family, made your Instructor Wei Wei think of the student who betrayed the academy. Of course, now you already know that this person was Zhao Li, who came to provoke us just now. He's from the Shuntian Prefecture's Zhao family. The Zhao family can be considered a first-rate aristocratic family in Shuntian Prefecture. Chapter 1951. Back then, he came to sign up out of admiration. His goal was to become Sir Lu Yun's last disciple. Wait, let me interrupt as well. Qi Xianxian couldn't help but ask, are you talking about the famous Sir Lu Yun of the 6 prefectures continent? I seem to have only read some legends about him in storybooks. I've heard about him from a storyteller. The little fatty raised his hand. Zhou Danjin nodded, but after a year and a half, he still hasn't seen Sir Lu Yun, so he's... Oh right, you guys still don't know, right? Young Master Lu Yun is actually your elusive principal. Zhou Danjin thought that the group of children might not know who young Master Lu Yun was, so he explained. Everyone's expression was like, the sky is going to rain red. What? You're saying that the number 1 expert of the 6 prefectures, Sir Lu Yun, is our principal? The little fatty had a strange expression. So, the student Zhao Li who was looking for trouble just now, because he hadn't seen the principal for a year and a half, he ran away? Sigh, it's because of this student Zhao Li. His talent is quite good. So, the cultivation plan that us instructors came up with for him is a step-by-step method that supports his characteristics. Furthermore, Instructor Wei Wei had spent a lot of effort on Zhao Li's cultivation method. That brat's sudden betrayal really made your Instructor Wei Wei sad. Shut up, Zhou Danjin. Wei Wei's angry voice came from behind. Zhou Danjin hurriedly spoke faster. So, actually, Instructor Wei isn't born with a cold face. You guys should be a little more understanding of him. Student Xiao, Instructor Wei Wei only wants to temper your character and suppress the sharpness you exude. To put it bluntly, it's also for the sake of your future cultivation. Don't think that he's intentionally targeting you. Zhou Danjin. Okay. I won't say anymore. Zhou Danjin immediately shut his mouth and walked to the side with a smile, starting another day of nagging. Students, it's up to you to win glory for the academy in the semifinals. Everyone silently glanced at him before turning their heads away in unison. Instructor Zhou's face was filled with helplessness. When he received the looks from Endless Blade and the others, he laughed awkwardly and said, "The dean is right. This batch of students is very energetic." The distance between Anping Inn and Xinghua Martial Arts Arena was only about a quarter of an hour's walk. By the time everyone arrived at the arena, the main people in charge of the tournament were already seated at the entrance. The three of them were all veterans in charge of competitions. Over the years, all the big and small competitions of the 6 Prefectures Academy had basically come to their family's arena. Therefore, the people in charge of these battle arenas were quite familiar with the various instructors of the various academies. Instructor Zhou and Instructor Wei from the top academies are here. One of them quickly stepped forward and cupped his hands towards the crowd with a smile. "Please come in. The seats have already been arranged." "Thank you." Zhou Danjin smiled and cupped his hands at the person in charge. Mr. Hong is the main judge of this competition. There are also some things that you need to pay attention to. Everyone, please take a look at the rules and regulations. The person in charge handed Instructor Zhou a piece of red paper with many rules written on it. Only then did he turn around and call for the servant beside him to lead everyone in. Zhou Danjin nodded his head in thanks. Chapter 1952. As soon as they entered the ring-shaped arena, their ears were flooded with noise. The servant led them to the seating area and respectfully bowed to Zhou Danjin. "Instructor Zhou, you can sit here. Then, after an hour, the first drawing of lots will take place. You can send a student to the arena to draw lots. You should all be clear about the rules of the competition, so I won't repeat them." "Oh, okay. I'll take my leave. If you need any snacks or fruits, you can go to the sales area to buy 1 or 2. The servant pointed to the side of the ring-shaped seating area. Everyone turned to look, and couldn't help but feel speechless. It turned out that the big shots of the arena had thought of a way to do business this year. There was a sales area next to the seating area, and at first glance, there were indeed melon seeds, snacks, fruits, and quite a variety of food. As for the price, it was hard to say. They would probably have to use materials to exchange for 1 or 2, so there probably wouldn't be many people buying. Everyone took their seats. Instructor Zhou flipped through the red paper with the rules written on it, and after looking at it for a while, he said to everyone, "The rules this time are about the same as the previous years. The semifinals are a competition between the academies. Specifically, before the start of the competition, a student will be sent to the arena to draw lots. If you draw the same number, you'll have a martial arts competition. After that, when there are only 30 academies left, it will officially enter the final round. At that time, the new rules will be followed. With so many academies, the semifinals this time will probably take around 10 days. In the past, it was settled in 7 days." After Zhou Danjin finished speaking, he turned to look at Arbor. "Student Xiao, you go up to the arena to draw lots." Arbor glanced at Instructor Zhou with an indescribable expression. "Reason? The reason is really too simple." Instructor Zhou's face was smiling like a chrysanthemum, and he was overjoyed. "Everyone knows, it's 3 words. You're lucky. Everyone. Weren't instructors just 3 words?" Instructor Zhou looked at Arbor with a smile. "Student Xiao, what do you think?" "Nothing much," Arbor said indifferently. "I'll tell you the truth. My luck has always been erratic. With this draw, I might be able to draw the strongest team." "Which team is the strongest?" "Of course it's the top 3 from last year. Heaven Bestow Academy, Auspicious Academy, and Sunlight Academy. Are they very strong?" Qi Xianxian was stunned. They didn't know much about Heavenly Bestowing Academy, but Auspicious Academy had been wiped out by Jojo when they were in the underground base. Guan Ying's team isn't the only one in Jiaqing Academy. Instructor Zhou waved his hand. Jiaqing Academy was ranked second in the last Academy ranking tournament. Their captain, Li Nanshan, is very strong. The last time we met, she had already broken through to become a level 10 great spiritual master. In the individual rankings, Li Nanshan is ranked third. Don't you think she's strong? You little shrimps. If you run into Li Nanshan's team, you'd better surrender obediently. Zhou Danjin curled his lips. Instructor, what are you talking about? Mata's sudden shout almost made Zhou Danjin jump up in fright. What the fuck? This little bastard roared into his ear. Instructor, we will definitely work hard to bring glory to our academy. Chapter 1953. Zhou Danjin gazed at his students with a gratified expression. The dean was right, they were indeed a group of hot-blooded youths. All right, students, then whether or not the instructors will achieve meteoric success this time and whether or not the academy will be able to raise its status in the 6 prefectures continent will all depend on you. Zhou Danjin said with a smile before turning to look at Xiao Mu. Student Xiao, let's make a deal. You'll go draw the lots right away. Jojo, draw one for us. Everyone grabbed her small hand excitedly. Arbor looked at them expressionlessly, thinking that the students would say something encouraging. In the end, little Fatty said loudly, the weakest team. Qi Xianshen burst out laughing and pushed little Fatty's hand away. She jokingly scolded, go away. Instructor, what you're saying is that after we draw lots, the 2 academies will have a group battle? Arbor blinked and asked. Everyone inexplicably noticed that the little fellow's eyes seemed to be sparkling. At the mention of a group battle, her expression was especially comical. Instructor who waved his hand and smiled, of course it won't be as simple as a group battle. Oh, of course, if the 2 academies agree to a group battle, that's fine too. Usually, the way 2 academies battle is a one-on-one challenge. Of course, it can also be a one-on-one challenge. Understood? Everyone nodded in unison, their gazes shifting to Duanmu Qing. Then they'll just have to let Duanmu Qing go later. Duanmu Qing only felt that the way little Fatty and the others looked at him was a bit off, and he couldn't help but shudder. What are you looking at? Everyone laughed foolishly and shook their heads. At this moment, a few more teams were led by the manservants of the arena and walked towards them. When they passed by, they nodded to each other as a greeting. Those who sat in their area were usually from academies that weren't very famous. Big academies like Sunlight Academy, Moonlight Academy, and Jiaqing Academy were all seated in the front row. Their small corner was separated from the front row by 40 to 50 academies. Arbor took out a bag of sunflower seeds and snacks, but before he could eat them, the people around him had already grabbed them. Miss Qiao lowered her head to look at the empty bag before turning to meet the smiling Prince Mo's eyes. She angrily put away the empty bag and took out an apple to chew on. Half an hour later, all the seats in the circular area were basically filled. A spirited old man quickly walked up to the middle of the grand tournament stage and said to the people seated around him, all right, can the 677 academies that have passed the preliminaries please send their student representatives up to the stage to draw lots? The old man's voice was not very loud, but his words penetrated everyone's eardrums and were heard very clearly. Student Xiao, it's up to you. Mata and the others said excitedly. Arbor stood up, only to hear a roar coming from the front. Someone from Jiaqing Academy will definitely win. Who drew the perfect lot in the Sunlight Academy? The roar was earth-shattering. Little Fatty said happily, Jojo, how about we help you shout too? Yes, 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 we'll shout for the top academies. Shut up. Xiao Mu glared at them while sweating profusely, and her small face was dyed crimson red. His face was so hot and embarrassed. Shout your sister, it's so tacky. Chapter 1954. Jojo's blushing. Before Mata could finish his sentence, Prince Mo glared daggers at him, scaring him so much that he swallowed the rest of his words. How preposterous! Only he could see his wife blushing. The venerable Peach Blossom Immortal sat beside him, munching on melon seeds. He said in a down-to-earth manner, Sai, I think there's going to be a good show to watch this time. Arbor ran all the way to the arena area. She followed the crowd up the stairs and onto the martial arts stage. With Crown Prince Mo and the others' outstanding eyesight, they naturally saw the little lady standing at the edge of the martial arts competition stage. She was bored to death as she stared at those people who were desperately trying to squeeze into the center, as if they could draw lots earlier if they squeezed in. The martial arts stage was about 100 feet wide. It didn't seem crowded even if a few hundred people stood on it. However, everyone was eagerly trying to squeeze in, making the few people at the edge stand out. All right. Line up and draw lots in order. The number of academies participating in the semifinals this time was beyond the expectations of the martial arts arena manager. With so many people drawing lots one by one, it would take about 15 minutes. All right, line up and walk through the lot pot in order. Don't hesitate and don't stop. If I find out that any of you are using your spiritual awareness to read the contents of the lot pot, it will be considered cheating and you will be disqualified. The crowd was in an uproar, but after the old man's reprimand, the noise quieted down. They hurriedly lined up one by one and walked to the big table where the lot pot was placed. With one person following another, the drawing of lots was actually quite fast. If anyone deliberately stopped, they would naturally receive a stern warning from the old man. It was only when the people who had drawn lots all lined up on the other side uneasily that the people on Xiao Mu's side started moving slightly. One of the young men nodded at Arbor and said, "Miss, please go first." Xiao Mu waved her small hand, indicating for him to go first. It was only when most of the people had left that she dragged her feet and nonchalantly lined up at the very end of the line. Didn't Instructor Zhou say that she was lucky? She refused to let him have his way and dragged him to the last one. She resigned herself to fate and let God arrange whatever team for them. Teacher Zhou saw that her attitude was negative, so he would definitely not let her go on stage to draw lots tomorrow. One by one they drew lots. In the end, the young man also drew a bamboo stick. He turned around and nodded at her before standing to the side. Arbor pursed his small mouth and walked forward proudly. His small hand felt around inside the bamboo tube for a long time. Cough. It wasn't until the old man coughed lightly that she raised her head and glared at the old man. "Where's the signature?" The old man's mouth twitched, and he said with some amusement, "Little girl, you don't have to smoke anymore." Just now, this old man said that there are 667 academies participating in this round of competition. Naturally, one of them will be given a bye. "Congratulations, little girl, your academy has a bye." Everyone was speechless. Arbor, the old man, ? This little girl had an indescribable expression on her face. What was going on? "Student Yu, what's wrong?" At the table, Shen Xinran, who was also from Tianxi Academy, narrowed her eyes and looked at Yu Gui, who was sitting next to her. She had always felt that Yu Gui's relationship with Jiang Qi and the others in the team was a little strange. The sixth watch ended. Chapter 1955. Shen Xinran looked at Yu Gui and the others suspiciously. She still felt that Yu Gui, Jiang Qi, and Lu Ling were a little strange. She could say that they didn't have any relationship, but sometimes they would inadvertently reveal that kind of familiar gaze, which made Shen Xinran believe that it was impossible for them not to have any interactions. If they were familiar with each other, but after interacting for a day, Yu Gui and Jiang Qi had not spoken more than 5 sentences. If they were familiar with each other, then they were too good at holding back. Shen Xinran looked at Yu Gui again, looking like she wanted to get to the bottom of it. "What's wrong, Yu Shueyo? Your face doesn't look good. Are you okay? Where do you feel uncomfortable?" Yu Gui suppressed her excitement. She almost didn't need to look back to know what kind of mood the few junior sisters sitting behind her were in at the moment. A few pairs of eyes flashed with a faint light, inch by inch. They struggled to leave the stage, suppressing the desire to rush back to the sect and tell everyone that our little junior sister is here. Glancing at Shen Xinran indifferently, Yu Gui said coldly, "Oh, I'm fine, sorry for troubling student Shen." Shen Xinran's face sank slightly. Damn it, it was this kind of lukewarm attitude again, making her warm face stick to a cold butt again. She was the daughter of the Shen family, born to be superior. If not for the fact that Yu Gui and the others had good aptitudes, She would be too lazy to rope them in and try every possible way to bring them into her family. A group of cowards from the lower star domain, shameless. She was willing to give them an olive branch, but these guys who didn't know what was good for them, not only did they not give her this olive branch like dogs, they even dared to go against her and hide everything from her, the leader. This was simply outrageous. Shen Shinran looked at Yu Gui and the others coldly, thinking in her heart, people probably only understand how important opportunities are when they are in a desperate situation. Yu Gui and this group of people were destined to become dogs that she, Shen Shinran, could order around at her beck and call. Just wait and see. A dark light flashed past Shen Shinran's eyes. At the same time on the battle stage, the head judge in charge of the students' drawing lots, the old man Hong Chi, looked at the young lady in front of him with a complicated expression. Could it be that she was not excited and unhappy? This was the first round of the semifinals. At the very least, it would save their entire team 1 to 2 days' worth of combat power. The other academies might be exhausted from fighting today and tomorrow, and they would still have to continue the second round of the competition, but that wasn't that a good thing? But the little girl's expression was obviously a little off. Little girl, which academy are you from? This old man will help you register. Hong Chi coughed lightly. A top academy. Instructor Zhou jumped up and shouted at the old man from afar. The old man was speechless. Zhou Danjin beamed with joy as he waved his paw at the little person in the center of the stage. He nodded with a gratified expression. As expected of our lucky student Xiao. Prince Mo and the venerable Peach Blossom Immortal wanted to laugh. Based on their understanding of the little fellow, they guessed that this child originally wanted to secretly poke fun at Instructor Zhou. In the end, things didn't go as planned. Miss Chiao expressionlessly watched as the elder finished registering her. She nodded at her and said, "Congratulations again, student. You've helped your academy draw a bye." Chapter 1956. Everyone, let's give a round of applause. Congratulations to this extremely lucky student from the top academy. Arbor's face was stoic as all sorts of feelings welled up in her heart. Everyone below the stage clapped with all their might. Instructor Zhou, that idiot, shouted good job in between. Everyone on the stage had an indescribable expression as they looked at this little girl with a stoic face. Why was it like this? If they had known that they would be last and automatically get a bye, why did they have to squeeze in the first place? They spent so much effort, but in the end, they couldn't even compare to the girl who was leisurely last. Our dear Xiaomu sighed. Sure enough, everything was fated. It wasn't up to her now that her luck had come. There was no way she could stop it. Next, please count off your numbers. Those who have the same number, please line up in pairs. Everyone immediately sighed and lined up according to their numbers. Xiaomu also drooped her head and dejectedly walked down the martial arts stage. The rest of the matter had nothing to do with her. Everyone in the seats looked at this little girl with a stoic face as she walked down and curiously looked at her a few times. Yu Gui's gaze fell on the little girl. When she saw her stomp past her on the stage, her hands on her knees clenched into fists. Then her breathing gradually calmed down. She couldn't be anxious. But how could she not be anxious? Yu Shueyo, are you okay? Shen Shinran heard her breathing become heavier and couldn't help but be a bit surprised. Yu Gui silently lowered her head and secretly decided to leave Xinghua Arena before looking for her little junior sister. The little girl returned to the top academy's seating area and was surrounded by a group of people. Everyone was scrambling to give her a head rub, but who would have thought that someone would suddenly raise an arm and carry Miss Chiao over? You're not allowed to touch her. Each and every one of them wanted to touch his wife. How could he let that happen? Sigh. Xiao Mu sighed and sat down next to Crown Prince Mo without a word. She then fished out a carrot and bit down on it with a crunch. She was a bit depressed. What should she do? Look at Instructor Zhou's blooming chrysanthemum face and how he was smiling. Just looking at it made him feel a little vexed. Zhou Danjin praised with a smile. Thank you for your hard work. Xiao Mu cast him a silent glance before silently shifting to sit down next to Crown Prince Mo. Her large eyes darted around as she dryly remarked, Occasionally, I get lucky. Don't worry, your luck will run out tomorrow. It's not just occasionally. Instructor Zhou chuckled. You're being modest, aren't you? Let me tell you about Jojo. Zhou Dan moved closer to Arbor, but there was still Prince Mo between them. Noticing the Crown Prince's cold gaze drifting over, Instructor Zhou coughed dryly and stepped back. With a face full of smiles, he said, for this competition, we'll send you to draw lots. I don't think anyone has any objections. No problem, no problem. Everyone shook their heads. In terms of luck, if Jojo claimed second place, no one would dare to claim first place. Arbor's little face was expressionless as she chuckled. Other than the fact that her voice sounded like she was laughing, her delicate eyebrows didn't even twitch, that everyone thought that the little girl's expression was a bit funny. See you later. Arbor's little face was tense as he tugged at Mo Lien beside him. Mo Lien understood and stood up. Chapter 1957. Since there was no need to fight, what was the point of her staying here? Of course, she was going to do what she was supposed to do. The young couple waved their sleeves and floated away. Shichen, Little Taisui, Infinite Blade, and the others naturally couldn't be bothered to stay here any longer, so they also left. Director Zhou laughed awkwardly and reached out to touch his nose. That's right, everyone. Let's watch how other people play the game and learn some experience from it. As the saying goes, know yourself and know your enemy, and you will never be defeated. Instructor Zhou speechlessly looked at the back of the students' heads as they turned away. All right, children, as long as you're happy. In the other room, Shen Xinran frowned and turned her face. There was a dense crowd behind her, so she couldn't see what Yugue was looking at. However, she knew very well that Yugue's mind wasn't on the competition from the beginning. Shen Xinran said coldly, it's our academy's turn soon. Yugue Jiangqi, you guys better focus. Don't get eliminated in the first round. A crisp laughter came from beside Shen Xinran. The girl who spoke was in her early 20s, and her apple-like face was glowing with a smile. She deliberately tilted her head and put on an innocent look, as if she was just teasing them and didn't mean any harm. Zhuang Meng, don't worry. We'll be responsible for ourselves and the competition to the end. Yugue replied indifferently, then turned her face away and didn't look at Shen Xinran and the others anymore. Zhuang Meng shrugged. All right. I'm just worried about you guys. After all, although we belong to two different teams, the total points will be counted together. Yugue ignored her, and Zhuang Meng felt bored. In reality, Shen Xinran and Zhuang Meng were worried for nothing. With Yugue's strength, the first few rounds before the semifinals were simply a one-sided slaughter. Soon, Yugue led Jiangqi and the others down from the arena. They didn't return to their seats, but walked out of the arena together. Where are you guys going? Shen Xinran and Zhuang Meng's voices suddenly sounded behind them. Two pairs of eyes looked at them with scrutiny. We're done with the competition, so we're going out for a walk. Lu Ling said indifferently. Yeah, it's a bit stuffy here. Seniors, please pay more attention to your team's upcoming match. Shen Xinran smiled. I feel that you guys are very strange. Could it be that you guys are spies from the other academies? Yugue's face turned cold. What do you think the Heavenly Bestow Academy has that we would covet? Oh? The spiritual techniques of the Heavenly Bestow Academy are at least of the earth level. Who's after your spiritual techniques? Little Canon Fong Su laughed mockingly. That's all you have. Fong Su, watch your attitude. Shen Xinran said angrily. What a joke. A few country bumpkins from the Lower Star region, after living in the 6 prefectures continent for a few years, did they think that their horizons were higher than the natives of the 6 prefectures? We're all schoolmates from the same academy. Why do you have to make such a fuss? Shut up. You're already so old and you're still pretending to be cute. Do you think that just because you have the word cute in your name, you're really cute? Little Pao opened his mouth and attacked directly. Disgusting. Every time she spoke, she would speak in a coquettish tone. Sorry, I'm a woman. You can't be coquettish with me. You. Zhuang Meng was hit by a barrage of verbal attacks. She was so angry that her whole body was shaking. Chapter 1958. What's the fuss about? A middle-aged tutor from Heavenly Bestow Academy walked over with a dark face. Tutor, they left without permission? Yugue said with a cold face, we've already finished competing. It's fine after the competition? That tutor reprimanded without any explanation. You think that you can be proud just because you've successfully advanced to the first round? We didn't say that. Yugue's face darkened. She pursed her lips and looked straight at the middle-aged tutor. This tutor had always been on the side of the Shun family's eldest daughter. Compared to the Shun family, Yugue and the other girls had no background. If it weren't for the fact that they were quite talented, how would they have the chance to stand here and represent the academy in the competition? Arrogant and self-satisfied. No organization. The middle-aged tutor reprimanded with a dark face. Even if you finished competing, can't you stay and continue watching Shinran's team compete? Shinran and the others are your teammates. I don't know what's going on in your heads all day. You're so weird. You don't think about things you should think about, and you blindly think about things you shouldn't think about. Go back and sit properly. In the future, pay attention to team unity. Don't act on your own. Little Cannon Fong Su was about to explode in anger. Just as she was about to speak, Chen Hanzi pressed her hand down forcefully. Got it. Yugue nodded coldly. She glanced indifferently at the smug Shinran and the others, then led Lu Ling, Fong Su, and the others back to their seats. That middle-aged tutor also followed them back angrily. He glanced at Yugue and the others from the corner of his eyes. When he saw the indifferent expressions on their faces, he couldn't help but explode in anger. They really couldn't be taught. 2 days later, the students from the top academies entered energetically, attracting the attention of many other academies. Everyone whispered among themselves. The top academies are really super lucky. That's right. Look at them. They haven't competed in the past 2 days. Unlike us, we're exhausted even after resting for a night. Arbor had just sat down when Tutor Zhou's Methria Buddha laughter sounded in his ears. Hee, student Xiao. I'll have to trouble you to go up and draw a lot this time. Arbor glanced at Instructor Zhou from the corner of his eyes. He slowly got up and walked towards the stage. When he arrived at the battle stage, he realized that everyone was hiding in the corners of the huge battle stage, leaving an empty area in the middle. The men and women who had been standing in the corner with her yesterday all looked at her helplessly and stood in the middle of the room. Oh, they've all learned their lesson. Arbor's eyes flashed, and he naturally walked to the first place and stood still. Since so many people wanted to snatch the empty slot, he would give it to them. Arbor had just stood still when the old man's angry voice came from the side. What are you all doing? All of you, line up. Line up. What are you all doing in the corner? Those who don't line up within 3 minutes will be disqualified. Today, there are 339 academies participating in the martial arts competition. All of you, line up and draw lots. Don't dawdle and fall behind. Old rules, whoever cheats with spiritual sense will be disqualified. Everyone looked at each other. Everyone wanted someone else to line up first. They were fighting over the last spot. What a joke. Everyone knew the routine. Who didn't want to get a bye? Who didn't want to advance naturally? Miss, how about I draw first? Chapter 1959. Arbor waved her hand. That guy from the day before had come again, but she didn't need it. First place was first place. It didn't matter. Xiao Mu took the lead and pattered to the bamboo pot. She casually picked a stick and pattered to the side to stand. Whoever wanted to be last in line to take advantage of the free draw, let them be. In any case, Jojo didn't want to go on stage to draw lots again tomorrow. Everyone finished drawing lots. Only then did the old man nod his head and look at the stupefied student at the back of the line. This idiot was holding a bamboo stick in his hand. He was probably wondering why he still had a stick in his hand when he was the last in line. Shouldn't it be a free draw? Isn't everyone curious why the last in line also has a stick in his hand? Everyone suddenly had a bad premonition. The Shenghua martial arts arena was really full of tricks. It was impossible to guard against them. Now, just like yesterday, stand in pairs according to the corresponding numbers. The old man stroked his beard and said with a smile, "Zero, don't look for others. Come out and stand next to this old man." Everyone looked at each other in dismay. Only then did they realize that the free draw this time was 0. Everyone quickly found their corresponding teams. Some were happy and some were sad. When they saw that their opponents were weaker than them, they were naturally happy. When they saw that their opponents were stronger than them, they immediately hung their heads dejectedly. Miss Chiao held the bamboo stick in her hand and stared at it for a long time with a strange expression. Then she slowly moved to the old man's side with the speed of a turtle. The old man stroked his beard and smiled at the crowd. When he felt that someone had moved to his side, he smiled and turned his head. "Lucky little guy, you got the free draw, huh? Why is it you again?" Arbor had an indescribable expression and looked at the old man with a strange expression. On the martial arts stage, the student representatives from the other several hundred academies simultaneously looked at her. Those pairs of eyes were like daggers, stabbing at Xiao Mu's body with a swish. If it happened once, it would be luck. If it happened twice, then it would be the ancestors burning incense. How could this little girl be so infuriating? "Teacher, I suggest that we don't let this girl draw lots on stage next time." "That's right. Let them change their representatives." At the end of the day, Instructor Zhou's wild laughter rang out again. "Old mister, it was time to register." "Same old rules, huh? A top academy." The old man looked at the indignant representatives speechlessly. He coughed lightly and waved to Arbor. "Little girl, come with me to register. Don't worry, there won't be a bye tomorrow." The old man hurriedly tried to calm everyone down. "Fuck. Next time I won't bring this girl along to draw lots." Yes, request for a change." Switch." Arbor looked at the crowd innocently, turned around, and jumped off the stage without looking back, returning to his seat. 2 days ago, because there were many teams participating in the first round of the semifinals, the competition lasted for 2 full days. However, as the participating teams were eliminated one by one, the strength of both teams increased. The competition in the next few days would not be too easy. It was estimated that the second round of the semifinals would take at least 2 days of selection. In other words, the teams from the top academies who had hit the jackpot could relax for 4 days in a row. First 5 chapters. Tonight, more chapters. Today, more chapters. Chapter 1960. Xinhua Martial Arena. In the front row of the Key Academy's seating area, Zhuang Meng pouted and tugged at the corner of Shen Xinran's clothes. Shen Xinran impatiently turned around to look at her, only to see Zhuang Meng pursing her lips at her. Shen Xinran followed her gaze and saw Yugi, Jiangqi, and the others sitting in a row. Although they didn't say anything, it could be seen that they were in a pretty good mood. A faint smile hung on the corners of their mouths. Especially Yugi, this girl. She usually had a stern face all day long, and her features were rather heroic. At first glance, she didn't seem easy to get along with. But today's Yugi seemed to be a bit different from usual. Humph. Shen Xinran rolled her eyes and slowly turned her head. She asked one of the attendants who was following closely behind her, "Have you arranged everything?" "Yes, Mississippi. Everything has been arranged according to your instructions." Shen Xinran nodded, revealing a trace of disdainful mockery. She wanted to see, when a group of arrogant people walked into a hopeless situation, what kind of beast-like wails would they let out. At this time, the middle-aged instructor from Heavenly Bestow Academy slowly walked over with 2 other instructors. "Come and receive today's spirit-returning medicinal liquid." One of the instructors frowned and said, "Shen Xinran has 3 bottles. Zhuang Meng has 2 bottles, and everyone else has 1 bottle each." Yu Gue and the others accepted the bottles indifferently and returned to their seats without a trace of fluctuation in their expressions. Don't ask why Shen Xinran could have 3 bottles while Zhuang Meng could have 2 bottles. This kind of injustice was everywhere. Ever since they entered this Heavenly Bestow Academy, this kind of thing had happened frequently. If they were to fuss over everything, then it wouldn't be long before they would be angered to death. In this world, there was no place that treated everyone equally like the Holy Water sect. There was no distinction between the inner and outer sections. Whether it was the direct disciples or ordinary disciples of the three peak masters, their cultivation resources were basically the same. A paradise like the Holy Water sect that they would definitely do their best to pursue it for the rest of their lives. Senior Yugue, do you want to go up the stage together? Zhuang Meng tilted her head and put on an innocent appearance. Yugue ignored her, causing Miss Zhuang's smile to freeze on her face. Fong Su snorted. Following Yuge, the six of them walked towards the arena. Senior sister, little junior sister didn't leave. During the first round, little junior sister finished drawing her lot and left with the crown prince of Mo Kingdom. However, in the second round, little junior sister was still sitting there and had not left. I saw it. Yugue was also very anxious. In the past 2 days, the three mentors had strictly forbidden them from leaving the inn and wandering the streets. Shen Xinran and Zhuang Meng had been floating in front of them like ghosts all day long, so they had not had a chance to talk to their little junior sister. Little junior sister would definitely see them when they entered the martial arts competition. She wondered if little junior sister would misunderstand. Senior sister, don't think too much. Let's deal with the current situation first. Jiang Qi whispered beside her. Yugue nodded and took a deep breath with her 5 senior and junior sisters before stepping onto the arena. The opposite team was already standing in the ring. They had the same number of people as them. They were the students of Shuntian Mansion's Moonlight Academy. Senior sisters, please advise us. The 6 of them bowed courteously. Yugue and the other 5 naturally returned the bow. Subsequently, both sides withdrew their sharp blades at the same time and activated their spirit energy. Although the 101 votes weren't fully cast, I'll add more for you guys. Chapter 1961. Little Fatima, look over there. Aren't those 2 people from Che Rumen's team? Qi Xianxian suddenly pointed at the stage and shouted. Save them? Mata nodded. Ko Hongwen also said, oh, I really didn't expect that the 2 people who participated in the entrance exam with us actually ran off to Moonlight Academy now. They really are quite good at mingling. I remember that those 2 people are called Peng Guang and Zhu Bozong, right? Seems like it. Jojo, do you still remember that Che Rumen? Qi Xianxian asked curiously. I don't think I've seen Che Rumen ever since Tan Fa captured her. Che Rumen had long died and turned into ashes that flew to God knows where. Arbor muttered in her heart. She originally wanted to answer Qi Xuanxuan's question, but when she landed on the stage, she suddenly paused. She sat there in a daze for a moment before abruptly jumping up from her stool and forcefully rubbing her eyes. Her movement of getting up was so big that it immediately affected the attention of everyone around her. Miss Chiao forcefully rubbed her large eyes and stared fixedly into the distance. On the stage, those 6 nimble figures flew up and arranged the 6 long swords in their hands into a sword formation. They were filled with exploding spiritual light as they eerily swept towards the opposing team. Arbor's heart was greatly shaken. Impossible. She shook her head as she muttered to herself. Just as her small hand was about to stretch out to wipe her eyes again, Prince Mo had already stood up and grabbed her soft hand. He gazed at the stage with narrowed eyes and said softly, Jojo, it's your senior sister Yugue and the others. Arbor abruptly turned her head and dazedly stared at him for a while before turning back to stare at the stage. She shook her head. Impossible. Big liar. She buried their bodies with her own hands. Wasn't there not a single survivor of the Holy Water sect's 800 people? Everyone said that the Holy Water sect had been annihilated, and everyone looked at her alone with sympathetic gazes. Master died, 2nd Ant Master and 3rd Ant Master both died. All of the senior sisters were dead, weren't they? Mo Lian put her arm around her shoulders and said softly, let's just ask and we'll know. Look, your 6 senior sisters are all here. Perhaps the Holy Water sect still has more than just the 6 of them? Miss Chiao's eyes were filled with a layer of mist. She turned her little face to look at him, shook her head vigorously and said pitifully, when I went up on stage to draw lots in the first round, they already saw me. If it's my senior sister, why didn't she come to find me? Why? It's definitely not my senior sister. Qi Xianxian and the others did not know what was going on, but they were able to understand a thing or two. Then, he turned his head to look at the two teams fighting in the arena. He looked at them thoughtfully for a while. Mo Lian's heart immediately ached when she saw her suffering. She nodded and said, okay. They're not your senior sisters. Let's ignore them. Why? Arbor immediately retorted. The tears in his eyes were about to fall, and there was a hint of anger on his little face. She clearly looks exactly like senior sister Yugui. Prince Mo didn't know whether to laugh or cry. When his baby decided to be unreasonable, she was even more unreasonable than anyone else. Jojo. He softly whispered into her ear and used a handkerchief to wipe her sweaty palms. Let's ask them clearly later, okay? Perhaps we left early in the last round, so they couldn't find us even if they wanted to? We have the sex messenger talisman. Chapter 1962. Amused, Prince Mo pulled the little fellow to sit down and nodded. Then why don't you take it out for us to see? Arbor was momentarily dumbstruck. Her sex transmission talisman? Miss Chiao scratched the back of her head and secretly used her spiritual sense to push open the door to her inner world. After rummaging through her inner world, she finally found her sex transmission talisman in a nook and cranny. Senior sister sent me a message. The little fellow's eyes brightened as she raised the sex transmission talisman in her hand. There was a small line of words left on the talisman. Jojo, reply quickly when you see this. She left a message, Yugui. Yes, ever since she buried her martial aunt and senior sister's corpses, she had thrown the sex transmission talisman in a corner of her inner world and never looked through it again. Jojo. Qi Xianxian leaned over and looked at her. You found your companions? Arbor nodded at her. The venerable Peach Blossom Immortal said with a grin, Aya, an old friend from a foreign country is here. Shouldn't you bring out some good wine and let's drink until we're drunk? Foodie. Everyone cursed in unison, but when they heard the word food, their dog eyes lit up as they looked at Arbor. Arbor subconsciously pursed her lips, caressing the sex transmission talisman in her hand. Her gaze shifted to the arena again, only to see that the battle between the two sides had already reached its climax. Peng Guang released a circle of water spirit, trapping little cannon Fong Su in a water prison. Fong Su's cultivation was about the same as Peng Guang's, at the initial stage of level 14. After fighting for so long, she was a little tired. She was a little exhausted and couldn't break free of the water prison. However, senior sister Yugui and the rest were handling the remaining 5 people with ease. The battle would end soon, and victory should belong to senior sister's side. Little Cannon Fong Su was an impatient person. Seeing that her mystic energy was insufficient and she was trapped in the water prison, she took out the spirit-restoring medicinal liquid that the instructor had given her and gulped it down. If the spirit-restoring medicinal liquid could restore 1/10 of one's spirit energy, then it could at least restore 1/5 of one's mystic energy. When the time came, she would definitely be able to break free. But it hurts. Pain? It hurts. Fong Su suddenly clutched his stomach with both hands, cold sweat rolling down his forehead. He only felt that when that bottle of spirit-returning medicinal liquid entered his stomach, it was as if a raging fire had ignited in his stomach, boiling and burning. Bam! Fong Su tumbled to the ground. When Yugui and the others saw this, they couldn't help but call out junior sister in a fluster. How could they still be in the mood to fight? They quickly rushed forward to check on Fong Su's condition. Peng Guang. Seeing that his team member wanted to take advantage of the situation to attack Yugui and the others, the Moonlight Academy team leader couldn't help but shout to stop him. Peng Guang resentfully withdrew his hand and stood behind the captain. Junior sister, what's wrong? Senior sister, senior sister, senior sister. Fong Su clutched her stomach, her entire body emitting hot steam. Yugui reached out to touch Fong Su's forehead and was immediately shocked. Fong Su's entire body felt as if she had fallen into a furnace. It was terrifyingly hot. There's a doctor in the arena, quickly take junior sister to see him. On the side, Ming Xia hurriedly crouched down and carried Fong Su on her back. The 6 people directly left the Moonlight Academy team behind and rushed down the stage without looking back. The moment they rushed down the stage, they saw a slender figure suddenly appear in front of them like lightning. Yu Gui and the others raised their heads, and in an instant, their eyes all turned red. 8 watch ends. Chapter 1963. Quickly move her over there and lay her flat. Arbor didn't have time to reminisce with them as he pointed to an empty passageway. They naturally couldn't block the entrance to the stage, so as to avoid affecting other people going up to the stage. After moving Fong Su to the side, Arbor immediately opened his spiritual eye. After carefully taking Fong Su's pulse, Arbor used his spiritual eye to carefully inspect Fong Su's body. He saw that nearly 3/4 of her mystic energy had been used up, leaving only a portion. And this portion of mystic energy was strangely wrapped in a layer of black fluid. A type of heat poison. Not only could it make the poisoned person feel as if their internal organs were burning, if the dosage was large enough, it could even damage a person's normal mystic meridians. Once the mystic meridians were damaged, if there was no way to repair or reconstruct them, then the person's mystic cultivation path would be considered to have come to an end. Yu Gui and the rest surrounded the little fellow, but they didn't dare to interrupt and disturb her diagnosis and treatment. Arbor had just taken out his needle bag when he saw a middle-aged man with a twisted expression charge forward in a rage. He grabbed Yu Gui and the rest and roared furiously, "Yu Gui! Is this how you lead the team? You clearly could have won the competition just now. But you all ran off the stage without permission before the competition ended? Where is the Academy's honor?" Ming Xia picked up an empty bottle of spirit liquid and threw it heavily in front of that instructor. With a pop sound, the bottle exploded at the instructor's feet. "What kind of instructor are you? You actually gave poison to a student. Now that you've eaten someone's life, are you happy?" Something like this happening in the seating area naturally attracted the gazes of many people from the other academies. Everyone didn't even pay attention to the intense competition as they all looked with interest at the students and instructors quarreling in Heavenly Bestowing Academy. The instructor actually added poison to the medicinal liquid that the students took? What kind of exciting news was this? The middle-aged instructor's face was naturally flushed red, almost unable to maintain his composure. He stared at Ming Xia and angrily reprimanded, "What nonsense are you spouting? Don't vent your anger on your own instructor just because you lost the competition. Whether I'm venting my anger or not, you know better than anyone else." Chen Hanzi, who was at the side, said with a cold expression, "Everyone, take out the potions that the instructor gave us." Other than Fong Su, who drank it all in one gulp, the rest of them didn't touch the liquid on their bodies. At this time, hearing Chen Hanzi's words, the rest of the people took out the medicinal liquid from their pockets and placed it beside Arbor. Arbor swept his eyes over them and casually picked up a bottle. He pulled out the cork and fanned the mouth of the bottle with his hand, sniffing it. His voice was flat as he said, "1 bottle of trash spirit-restoring elixir." He could only recover 1/10 of his spiritual energy each time. The recovery effect was extremely poor. The scarlet fire poison has been added to it. The dosage is moderate and will not destroy the spirit meridians in the body. However, it will make the user feel as if they are in a fiery purgatory, causing unbearable pain. Everyone was speechless. Why did he feel that the little girl's indifferent tones sounded like she was mocking him? Was it an illusion? And a bottle of trashy spirit-restoring potion, that was there anyone who evaluated medicinal liquids like that? It was already extremely difficult for pill refiners to concoct this kind of spirit-restoring elixir. On the market, this kind of spirit-restoring elixir wasn't something that you could buy just because you had money. Most of it was concocted by pill refiners nurtured by various aristocratic families according to precious recipes. The little girl's disdain for this bottle of spirit-restoring elixir made people feel very subtle. Chapter 1964. It was as if she was saying that the #1 Heavenly Bestow Academy in Poland Prefecture could only produce this kind of trashy medicinal liquid? How embarrassing! The middle-aged tutor's face was instantly covered in a layer of soot. It was so dark that it was difficult to distinguish the color. The little girl's words were definitely infuriating. That evaluation of the spirit-restoring elixir solution made the 3 instructors of the Heavenly Bestow Academy feel like they had lost all face. What are you talking about? Although the little girl looked young, she was able to analyze the medicine in a clear and logical manner. The 3 tutors felt guilty for no reason. Be bastard! How could there be such a young alchemist? She must be lying to them. Your method of poisoning is extremely clumsy. The little girl added another evaluation. Little Fatty and the others who were watching the commotion couldn't help but laugh when they heard this. My God, seeing their family's JoJo's small face and expressionless poisonous tongue lecturing people, it really was a kind of visual enjoyment. The 3 Heavenly Bestow Academy tutors were probably so angry that their lungs were about to explode. Hearing this, one of them said angrily, "Little girl, don't speak nonsense when you can eat whatever you want. How can you prove that your judgment is correct? This poison isn't something you can casually scold people with just your words. I've been practicing medicine for decades. How could I lie to you?" The little fellow opened her mouth and said this. Then she also felt that something was wrong. That the corners of Yugi, Shinhanzi and the others' eyes twitched. They maintained a straight face and didn't say anything, but in reality, they were on the verge of breaking down. Little junior sister, even if you were to count the time you practiced medicine in your mother's womb, at most, you could only have practiced for 16 years. This bullshit of a few decades was really too exaggerated. Arbor was expressionless as she continued to use her spiritual eye to check the condition of Fong Su's body. While she was chatting with the Heavenly Bestow Academy tutors, she didn't forget to insert the needles in her hand. In this short period of time, the poison in Fong Su's body was almost completely removed. Dr. Luo is here. Mikwe. The crowd opened up a path for a trembling old man who was not very agile to walk forward. There was naturally a big difference between a doctor and an alchemist. Other things aside, refining pills wasn't something any doctor could do. This old doctor was proficient in the art of detoxification, so it was normal for him to be dragged over. Arbor's acupuncture was at a crucial point, so the old doctor did not disturb her. He just watched from the side for a while and nodded repeatedly. Your acupuncture technique is exquisite. I wonder who your teacher is. Arbor put away the needles and looked up at the old doctor. He said expressionlessly, "My master is naturally a hidden expert. I can't reveal his name to you." Everyone, they really wanted to hit this lousy child. Usually, they would just say that their master did not allow them to reveal their name. Then, others would naturally understand that their master was an expert and would be too embarrassed to ask further. Who would directly say that their master was an expert. How immodest. The old physician smiled helplessly. He wasn't angry and walked up from the side. He first checked on Fong Su, who was lying on the ground with his eyes closed. He nodded and said, "He's fine now." Then, he looked at the medicine bottle on the ground and confirmed that what Arbor said was true. This kind of red fire poison isn't hard to detoxify. It's just that it will cause a lot of damage to the human body in a short period of time, the old doctor explained. It's very painful. However, the young doctor's acupuncture technique is extraordinary. The treatment is very good. Chapter 1965. I believe that this lady will wake up very soon, the old doctor said with a smile. Yu Gui thanked him and turned to look at the 3 teachers with ugly expressions. She asked coldly, "Teacher Zhang, did you all hear that? You tell me how to solve this matter." The middle-aged teacher glanced at Yu Gui guiltily. What are you saying? Would a teacher poison his own student? The truth is right there. I don't know what's there to quibble about. Yu Gui interrupted his quibbling and looked straight at him. Teacher Zhang flew into a rage out of humiliation and turned to glare at the younger teacher beside him. Teacher Sun, you explain to them. The elixir has always been with you. How could it be poisonous? Teacher Sun said indifferently, How would I know? These elixirs were all distributed by the academy. A dictum talisman flew to Teacher Sun's body and split open. The talisman energy drilled into Instructor Sun's body, causing his entire body to stiffen. In a split second, he poured out everything he knew. It was Miss Shin who instructed me to do this. It was Shinran. She gave me 10,000 spirit coins and a mystic-level spirit technique. I was ordered by her. That's why I put the fire red poison in Yugue's medicine bottle. The truth was revealed in a second. Everyone was dumbfounded. Shinran was so angry that her face was distorted. She stood up from her seat, pointed at Instructor Sun and screamed, "Don't you dare slander me. When did I ask you to do such a thing?" Ayaya, Teacher Sun, Teacher Zhang was right. You can eat whatever you want, but you can't speak whatever you want. Zhuang Meng covered her mouth and laughed. Shinran's face was filled with anger. She turned to glare at Zhuang Meng. Don't cause trouble. After Instructor Sun finished speaking, it was as if he was stuck. He paused and looked around in confusion for a while. His brain seemed to have short-circuited. What did he say just now? Teacher Sun looked at Shinran's angry gaze and couldn't help but be stunned. Shinran, what else do you have to say? Yugue and the others glared at him and called out spirit swords from their conscious, pointing them in Shinran's direction. What do you want? Teacher Zhang's eyes flashed with anger as he glared at the few of them and said, "You are all from the same academy. Now, because of a small misunderstanding, you want to draw your swords against each other? Aren't you worried about being expelled from the academy?" Shinran sneered as she looked at them. She pointed at Arbor and said, "I don't know what that little witch did to make Instructor Sun lose his composure. Just based on Instructor Sun's one-sided statement, you guys won't be able to identify me as the culprit. Just now, during the competition, you have already caused your own academy to lose because of a single mistake." And now, he was pointing his sword at his companion. "Do you really think that your talents are so good that the academy can disregard the past and tolerate you?" The little girl suddenly said angrily, "She called me a little witch." "Peony!" Prince Mo calmly ordered. The peony fairy immediately flew forward and chuckled enchantingly. Without any explanation, she slapped Shinran's cheeks twice. After the two crisp slaps, the peony fairy had a pitiful expression and said sweetly, "Aya, why do women have to make things difficult for other women?" Chapter 1966. Looking at the bright red handprints on Shinran's left and right cheeks, everyone's gaze fell on the little girl and they all looked at her. In this kind of serious and tense atmosphere, they actually had an inexplicable urge to laugh at why did the little girl only pay attention to others calling her a witch. Wasn't this point of focus a bit mysterious? Shinran had never been insulted like this since she was young. She was so angry that every strand of hair on her body was trembling. "Slave Eagle!" she screamed. The attendant who was originally following behind her immediately stepped forward and aggressively reached out his claws towards Arbor. "You're looking for death." Prince Mo's eyes turned cold. Yugue and the rest had already blocked Slave Eagle's figure with their swords. They raised their legs and kicked him back a few steps. Slave Eagle wanted to make another move, but Peony Fairy moved her finger and a lightning spirit fell on Slave Eagle's head with a pa-cheech sound, directly striking him and making him fall to the ground with a thud. "Ayaya, I told you not to fight. Why can't you talk nicely?" Peony Fairy stroked the hair on her temples and shook her head. "Bullying you little kids doesn't give me any sense of accomplishment." Shinran was so angry that her whole body was trembling. She pointed at Yugue and the rest and turned to Teacher Zhang. "Teacher, these people are extremely arrogant. First, they slandered me for instigating Teacher Sun to poison, then they protected an outsider against their own classmates. They should be expelled from the academy immediately." Teacher Zhang's mouth turned down slightly. He stared at Yugue with a serious face and said, "Apologize to Miss Shen. Do you really not want to stay in the academy any longer? There's no point in staying in a lousy academy with a degenerate teacher like you." Zhou Danjin mocked from the side. Immediately, many people from other academies agreed and started to jeer. No one was blind. The truth was in front of everyone. This Miss Shin instigated Teacher Sun to poison. How could she not be punished? This Teacher Zhang was still protecting her. It was really disgusting. All of you. Shen Shinran felt like she was being targeted by the whole world. She stomped her feet in anger. Teacher, chase them out. Teacher Zhang nodded with a cold face. You good? There's no need for you to chase us away. We'll leave on our own accord. Yu Gui raised her hand and stopped Instructor Zhang from speaking. Instructor Zhang suddenly felt as if he had punched into soft cotton. His face was livid with anger. All of a sudden, hit him. The little girl threw a rotten egg at Instructor Zhang's face. Qi Xianxian and the rest of the onlookers immediately rushed forward as if they had been injected with chicken blood. They showered Teacher Zhang with punches. Hearing the three mentors being beaten up by the crowd, the other students in the seating area who didn't like them also came up to give them a few punches. It wasn't until the person in charge of the arena hurriedly brought people over and separated the two sides that they saw the three Heavenly Bestow Academy instructors beaten black and blue. Teacher Zhang's finger trembled as he pointed at Arbor. He was so angry that he couldn't even speak. If it wasn't for the fact that they couldn't use spiritual power to attack in the seating area, would he have been beaten up so badly? Arbor pretended not to see him. He threw those scum to Qi Xianxian and the rest to deal with and ran to Senior Yu Gui's side. Fong Su had just woken up and saw her at a glance. Chapter 1967. 3. For 13 Little Pao was taken aback. Then, a rare gentle smile blossomed on her face as she slowly opened her arms. Little junior sister, aren't you going to give senior sister a hug? Miss Chiao threw herself into her arms and felt herself being tightly hugged. She almost couldn't hold back her tears. She thought that her tears had long dried up on the day the Holy Water sect was destroyed, but it turned out that they hadn't. Why? The little girl grumbled softly, I thought you were all dead. Only the heavens knew how tragic her emotions were when she transferred everyone's corpses to Peach Garden Slope that day. She thought that everyone in the sect had been sacrificed. Only today did she realize that they weren't. This feeling of having a huge pie drop down from the sky was a mixture of joy and sorrow. She felt like she was still in a dream even now. Big liar, Miss Chow muttered. He actually left Jojo alone in the lower star domain while all of them ran over to the middle 6 prefectures? It's a long story. We'll tell you in detail later. Yu Gui lovingly patted the little fellow's head. You've suffered these past few years. Little junior sister, it's really great to see you. Chen Hanzi and the rest's eyes glistened with tears as they spoke in choked voices. Yu Gui nodded with reddened eyes. Seeing that the others were sizing them up, she said softly, let's go. We'll talk after we leave this place. The little fellow raised her furry head and nodded. Everyone helped Fong Su up and held Xiao Mu's small hand as they walked towards the door. Shen Shinran's angry roar rang out from the table. Yu Gui, Lu Ling, Chen Hanzi, you will regret today's decision. In the 6 prefectures continent, itinerant cultivators without an academy or clan's protection would face many problems, especially when these people were all young and beautiful girls. They really wouldn't turn back until they hit a wall. Sooner or later, they would find out that without her Shun clan's protection, they would struggle to advance in the entire Poland prefecture. Shen Shinran coldly watched them leave without looking back. She clenched her fists with a gloomy expression. There will be a time when you'll be begging me. Who's that woman with a contorted face? Miss Chiao asked curiously. A strange woman. Chen Hanzi said, she has always thought that she is the eldest young miss of the Shun family of Poland Manor. She thinks that she is superior and wants to take us into her family as her servants. If we don't pay attention to her, she'll twist on her own, Ming Xia said unhappily. Don't pay attention to her. She's so full of herself. Junior sister, when did you come to the 6 prefectures continent? Yu Gui held the child's hand tightly and pulled her forward. I've been here for a long time. The little girl raised her head and glanced at them. Student Xiao. Arbor looked back and saw her companions not far away, smiling and waving at her. Remember to come back early later. Yes, meeting an old friend in a foreign land. The little fatty chuckled and said, I think what the celestial master said is right. It's worth celebrating. Arbor grinned and waved his little paw at Emolien, then turned around and left with his senior sisters. Mata rubbed his eyes. I don't know if my eyes are playing tricks on me, but I think I saw Jojo smile just now. Hee hee, I think my eyes are playing tricks on me as well. That's right. Little Fatty shook his head. Just now, Jojo smiled at them, right? Chapter 1968. For 14 to be precise, Jojo tugged at the corner of her mouth, revealing an expression that looked like she wanted to laugh, but didn't. What a novel feeling. Qi Xianxian couldn't resist asking. Jojo calls them senior sisters. In that case, did Jojo run into people from her sect? She previously thought that Jojo had run into the group of companions she wanted to wait for at Shuntian Prefecture's entrance, but it turned out that wasn't the case. I didn't expect the little stoic to have so many beautiful senior sisters. Wu Jidao chuckled mischievously while rubbing his chin. Little Taisui threw him a cold glance. Looks like someone is done for. Wu Jidao was speechless. How am I done for? Think about it. Little Taisui said airily, Jojo values her senior sisters so much. If she knew that you were planning to attack other people, how would she treat you? When Wu Jidao recalled the little fellow's methods, he seemed to catch Boss shooting him a threatening glance from the corner of his eye. He quickly shut his mouth and didn't dare to say anything else. He was someone who knew how to adapt to circumstances. Between his life and women, he would still choose his life. On the other side, Arbor followed her senior sisters back to their inn. As soon as she closed the door, everyone couldn't resist running up to Arbor and patting her head in passing. Little junior sister, have you been well on Seekong Planet these past few years? Have you suffered a lot? Look, you've lost a lot of weight. Arbor didn't have time to interject when she heard them asking her questions at once. Beside her, Yu Gue couldn't resist laughing and saying, with the crown prince of Mo Kingdom around, I think little junior sister can't endure any grievances. Arbor nodded her small head, indicating that she didn't suffer any grievances. Fong Su sat at the table and looked up at Arbor. She said with a smile, don't talk at once. Pick the main points and tell little junior sister about them first. There's still plenty of time in the future, so we can talk about those trivial matters later. Yu Gue nodded and said, that's right. Senior sister, let's bring little junior sister back. Mingxia said, if second martial uncle knows that junior sister is here, he will definitely be overjoyed. Arbor's eyes lit up. To? Second martial uncle? Yu Gue nodded. And master is fine. Master and Auntie led us and found a house in Poland Mansion to stay for the time being. Little junior sister, you still have to continue competing. It won't take much time. When you're done, we'll. Senior sister. Fong Su didn't quite agree. What kind of competition is that? Why do you still care about it? It's more important for us to return to the sect and see Master. If Master knew that little junior sister is coming, he would definitely go crazy with joy. Arbor nodded. Yu Gue couldn't help but glare at her with a smile. She grabbed Arbor's little hand and said, don't worry about your senior sister, she's impatient. You're representing your academy, so you can't just give up halfway. Furthermore, if he won, he could go to Brinset Island to cultivate in the spirit realm. This is a rare opportunity. Don't miss it. Arbor thought for a moment and then nodded. The matter of going to spirit realm was related to whether or not Little Tree could recover. They couldn't give up so easily. We can't escape from that house in Poland Mansion either. When the competition is over, before we go to Brinset Island, I will definitely take you there. Okay. Everyone smiled at each other. Although they hadn't seen each other for many years, they still felt that the connection between them was so close. Some words didn't need to be said. They understood everything as they looked at each other. Chapter 1969. Little junior sister, Master was very worried about you. Yu Gue held Arbor's small hand and said softly, when our group safely moved to this unfamiliar place called Poland Manor, Master especially regretted not bringing you along. Master kept muttering that if she knew there was a special talisman matrix in the ancestral hall, she would have brought you back with her. Yu Gue hugged the little fellow and lightly patted her back. She said softly, you don't know how much Master blamed herself. That jumpy and dunce master really changed a lot these few years. Senior sister. I thought you all were dead, Arbor murmured. She thought she was the only one left in the holy water sect. It wasn't until she met Doya that she realized she wasn't alone. But now wasn't this a little too much of a surprise for her? Although Jojo still looked expressionless, she was actually very jubilant in her heart. The little fellow had already learned from her senior sisters that the 200 people the holy water sect moved away, including second Ant Master Yang Shirong. They were all diligently cultivating in Poland manner and were living well. She was in a very happy mood right now. This was a feeling of cherishing something she had lost and then regained. She originally thought that she had to take revenge for the sect alone and shoulder the responsibility of reviving the sect. But now, it was still not too late. There were still people in the holy water sect. There were still quite a few people. Everyone was here. That feeling of finally not fighting alone made her feel too carefree and excited. The 7 people chatted in the room until nightfall. Only then did Arbor pull Yugue's hand and say, "Senior sister, you should check out of this inn and stay at our place. We have a nouveau riche mentor who booked the entire 3rd floor of the inn. There are still quite a few rooms." Yugue laughed in spite of herself. "Won't it be too troublesome for your mentor?" "It won't be." Arbor shook her head with an expression that said, "If Mentor Zhou dares to despise senior sister, I'll beat him to death." Chen Hanzi patted her head and said with a smile, "Okay, we'll go with Jojo. We still have to watch Jojo's competition tomorrow." That's right. Arbor became even happier. Old Hong had also said that there would be no empty slots tomorrow. This meant that Jojo could finally find someone to fight. Jojo was excited at the thought of being able to beat someone up. After checking out of the inn, they followed Xiao Mu to the inn that the top-notch academy had reserved. As soon as he stepped out of the inn, he saw 3 teachers from the Heavenly Bestow Academy with bruises all over their faces, leading a group of shrimp soldiers and crab generals back. The 2 teams just happened to bump into each other. The faces of the 3 instructors, whose swollen faces instantly darkened. They glared at the people from Arbor and scolded angrily, "How dare you come back?" The students of the Heavenly Bestow Academy immediately surrounded Arbor's group as if they had been injected with chicken blood. Pairs of eyes glared at them like tigers eyeing their prey. Zhuang Meng covered her mouth and laughed. "Student Yugue, this is really unfortunate. There were only 7 people at Yugue's side. That powerful woman called Peony wasn't there, and the others weren't there either. Wouldn't it be easy for the Heavenly Bestow Academy to capture them?" Shin Shinran also hooted, "What are you waiting for? Take all these people down." That slut called Peony had dared to slap her, Shin Shinran, twice. Now, she was going to return everything to that slut in front of her. Chapter 1970. Without so many powerful helpers, let's see what this little bitch can do now. Shin Shinran waved her hand and 2 servants appeared behind her. They fiercely pounced in Arbor's direction. However, before they could get close, Arbor leisurely took out a bead from his pocket and smashed it on the ground. Spiritual energy bead. Everyone get out of the way. The 3 teachers with bruised noses and swollen faces screamed at the same time and jumped back like birds startled by the twang of a bow. Bang! The thunderous sound alarmed many of the residents in the surroundings. Everyone rushed out of their houses. The 3 teachers from Heaven Bestowing Academy cursed angrily and waved the dust in front of them. Cough, 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 cough. The group of students from Heaven Bestowing Academy were all covered in dust and coughing violently. This didn't seem to be a spiritual energy bead. With the power of a spiritual energy bead, if it smashed down at such a close distance, they would definitely be injured. And looking at the ground now, it didn't even make a big hole. It was obvious that this was a fake spiritual energy bead specially used to scare people. Cough, cough, cough. Shin Shinran waved the dust in front of her and screamed, "Idiots!" They ran away. Everyone was a bit angry but didn't dare to say anything. This Shin Shinran always acted high and mighty, scolding this idiot and that idiot. Wasn't she stupid herself? The little girl from the top academy ran away. Was it their fault? You, Shin Shinran, also didn't catch her. A student from Heaven Bestowing Academy scratched his wrist and said angrily, "Who knew that the little girl from the top academy was so cunning? If that little bitch wasn't cunning, how could she have drawn the empty number twice in a row?" Shen Shinran said angrily, "A group of brainless people. What are you still standing here for? Don't you feel like you haven't been laughed at enough? Let's go back." She took the lead and walked towards the inn. As she walked, she subconsciously scratched her back and felt a strange itch. "Xian, Shinran, help me take a look. Why does my neck feel itchy?" Zhuang Meng quietly pulled Shen Shinran and said in a low voice. Shen Shinran immediately became alert. "You're itchy too?" She also felt an itch on her back. Could it be that there was something wrong with the smoke from the bead that the wretched girl threw down just now? At this moment, someone in the crowd suddenly laughed out loud. "Look, there's hair on their faces." Shen Shinran hurriedly turned around to look. Tufts of green hair grew on the originally swollen faces of the 3 instructors from the Heavenly Bestowing Academy. It was especially strange and eye-catching. Several students were so frightened that they took a step back. Staring at the faces of the 3 instructors, they cried out involuntarily, "Instructors! Your faces!" Teacher Zhang, who had been scratching his face, turned his head to take a look. He was so frightened by Teacher Sun's hairy face that he almost fainted. Instructor Sun's face, which was originally considered normal, was now covered with a layer of green hair. A pair of eyes hidden behind the long hair looked at him faintly. It was as if he was looking at someone who would hurt him as much as he wanted to. "Instructor Sun, Sun!" Instructor Zhang screamed. A discordant cry came from the crowd. "Don't tell me they have turned into zombies? What? Quickly report to the city lord." Instructor Zhang hurriedly took 2 steps forward and said loudly to the crowd, "Don't talk nonsense, we are not zombies. No." Chapter 1971. The surrounding commoners saw him striding forward with a face full of green hair. His appearance was somewhat terrifying. How would they dare to continue watching? They hurriedly turned around and scattered like birds and beasts. For a moment, not a single person was left on the street. Only the teachers and students of Heaven Bestowing Academy were left. They looked at each other and couldn't help but laugh bitterly. "Itchy, so itchy. Hurry and help me take a look. My neck, the back of my neck." "All right, let's go back to our rooms first." Teacher Zhang scolded angrily and was about to step into the inn with a face full of green hair. That inn owner rushed out with a row of workers and blocked everyone outside. You guys don't come in. Monster. Hurry and report to the city lord. They've turned into zombies. Turned into zombies. I'll beat you up, you brainless fellow." Teacher Zhang and Teacher Sun raised their fists and wanted to beat up that inn owner. Are you stupid? Their brains were clear and their thoughts were very clear. They were clearly living people. How could they have turned into zombies? How could they have turned into zombies? Zombies, my ass. Go, go, go. Bad luck. The inn owner shrieked. I won't charge you for the tea for these 2 days. Hurry and scram. Let me tell you, the city lord's guards are about to arrive. If you don't leave, you bunch of monsters will be sent to jail. Who's a monster? Who are you calling a monster? Shen Shinran was so angry that her entire body trembled. She wanted to pounce forward but was stopped by Zhuang Meng. Shinran, hurry and help me take a look. Look at your dead head. Shen Shinran forcefully swatted Zhuang Meng's arm away and pointed at her face full of green hair. Can't you look at others? Look at my face? Don't have any wishful thinking. Everyone is the same now. Zhuang Meng shrieked and held her face full of green hair. She shrieked in disbelief. How could this be? What's going on? Are you a pig? You still don't know what's going on? Shen Shinran poked Zhuang Meng's head and scolded harshly. This must be the poison from that little bitch just now. What kind of poison is so powerful that it can actually disfigure us? Zhuang Meng couldn't believe it at all. Liar, you're lying. I want to go back to my room and look at the mirror. I want to go back. Go away. A few of the workers blocked Zhuang Meng's path with long sticks. The shopkeeper shrunk behind a few of his employees and only stuck his head out. He screamed at them laughably, "Get lost, get lost, get lost. You bunch of green-furred monsters, don't even think about coming to our store to torment the other customers. Get out of here." Shen Shinran and the others were about to explode from anger. In the midst of the dispute, the large number of guards sent by the city lord's mansion had indeed arrived. They surrounded the entire street and sent people to guard the main entrances and exits. A group of people rushed towards the inn. "We are from the Heavenly Academy who have come to Flourishing Magnificence City for the competition. The Heavenly Bestow Academy of the Poland Prefecture." Instructor Zhang shouted loudly, "We are not monsters, nor are we zombies. We were just poisoned by a scoundrel, that's why. Do you think I'm stupid?" The leader of the guards raised his hand and interrupted Instructor Zhang's words. "Do you think I haven't seen people poisoned? I want to ask you, what kind of people would become like you after being poisoned?" Chapter 1972. Green fur growing all over their bodies and their eyes turning red? They're clearly turning into zombies. What? Put on your protective gear, be careful not to get bitten by these zombified monsters. The leader shouted and ordered, "Surround them and take them all down." "We're not zombies. We're not. Our minds are very clear. We're not." What a joke. Which zombie would admit that they're about to turn into zombies? The leader sneered and waved his hand. All the city guards charged forward and used their spears and iron spears to form a circle, capturing all the people from Heaven Bestow Academy in one fell swoop. "You bunch of idiots. Who would be like us when they turn into zombies? Why would we waste time talking to you? I already told you that we're poisoned." Before Instructor Zhang could finish his sentence, a fist smashed into his furry face. It was so painful that the corner of his mouth twitched. "You guys are a bunch of idiots. Other people have black faces and purple lips when they're poisoned, who would have fur growing all over their bodies. Is this what your family's poison looks like?" Fong Su, who was hiding in the corner and peeking, couldn't hold back her laughter. Lu Ling also covered her mouth and laughed. Yu Gue pulled at the two of them, indicating for them to keep quiet. Let go of me, let go of me." Shen Shinran's scream made everyone's gaze fall on her. They saw a big green furry person struggling in the hands of two guards wearing protective gear. Her furry face was so distorted that it was impossible to see her original appearance. "You, what do you want to do? Let go of me. Let go. I'm the young miss of Poland Manor's Shen family. You dare to treat me like this? My father, Patriarch Shen, won't let you off." While struggling, she forcefully twisted her two furry arms, causing the clothes on her back to rip apart. Shen Shinran froze when she heard the sound of the cloth tearing. Then she let out an earth-shattering scream. You guys, you actually dare to treat me like this? This was like the last wail of a pure and innocent maiden before she was brutally trampled upon. However, the guards all looked at her with disdain. After her earth-shattering screams subsided, the head guard impatiently slapped Shen Shinran's face. "What are you shouting for? What kind of celestial being do you think you are? You're covered in green fur. Just looking at you makes me lose my appetite." Shen Shinran's entire body froze. This was the first time she had been so despised by men. Moreover, it was a group of lowly guards. Fong Su didn't mind watching the drama unfold. She was about to open her mouth to mock them when Chen Hanzi stopped her. "Let's go. The drama is almost over." If they were discovered by the people of the Heavenly Bestowing Academy that they had been hiding on the side and watching the commotion, then it would be a big mess. Arbor nodded. "Let's go." Rather than continue tormenting himself with this group of idiots from the Heavenly Bestow Academy, he might as well return to the inn and rest. Speaking of which, the sky was now completely dark. Arbor reached out and rubbed her small belly. She wondered if that group of foodies were still waiting for her to return. "Junior sister, how did they become like that?" Jiang Qi asked with a face full of curiosity. Was it the poisonous smoke that floated out when that pearl was smashed open? Chapter 1973. Arbor nodded, then shook her head. It's not poison, it's just a kind of medicine that accelerates hair growth. I'm a good person. The little fellow patted her chest. We have to clearly distinguish between gratitude and grudges when dealing with people. The one who poisoned senior sister was that Shinran. We can just poison her back. As for the others, they're just small fries. We can just teach them a lesson while we're at it. Yu Gue silently twitched her mouth. So Shinran really did hit the jackpot, didn't she? I couldn't tell at all. Fong Su excitedly rubbed her hands. From what I can see, Shinran's symptoms are pretty much the same as the others. In another hour, she'll be much worse. Little junior sister, what kind of poison did you give Shinran? Everyone asked curiously. Shinran gave senior sister fire red poison before. So I modified this fire red poison a bit and gave it to her. Alright, it's giving her a taste of her own medicine. Everyone nodded in understanding and followed little junior sister back to Tranquil Inn. We're staying on the 3rd floor. Arbor led everyone up the stairs. When they turned the corner on the 2nd floor, they happened to see 2 men walking out side by side. When they saw the 7 girls, they couldn't help but take a few more glances. Xiao Mu looked up and saw that the man on her left was precisely the man who had courteously yielded to her from time to time during the last 2 times they drew lots on the stage. Hence, she expressionlessly nodded at him as a greeting. That man smiled and also nodded at her. He stepped aside to let the 7 of them walk up. Another man's voice came from behind. Senior Brother Lee, are those girls the ones who had a falling out with Heavenly Bestow Academy and were chased out by Heavenly Bestow Academy? And, don't be nosy. Little junior sister, you even know Li Nanshan. What Li Nanshan? I don't know her. Miss Chiao replied without even thinking. Yu Gue and the others looked at each other. Fong Su couldn't help but want to laugh. But just now you? How could Miss Chiao still listen to the words of her senior sisters? At this moment, her eyes were filled with that young Master Mo who was standing at the door of the room. Under the illumination of the candlelight, his phoenix eyes were slightly raised as he looked at her with a smile. Beautiful. Such a good-looking man was Jojo's. Miss Chiao ran over happily, and her warm and soft hands were immediately held by the Crown Prince. Aya, my little girl. Didn't I tell you to come back earlier? What time is it now? The door of the room was opened from the inside, and a group of people walked out. Jojo, I had 2 desserts in the afternoon and have been waiting for you. When are we eating? Sure enough, this group of foodies was waiting for her. Arbor couldn't help but find it a little funny. 2 little fingers supported the corner of his mouth and raised it up. Am I laughing? Everyone was speechless. Are you guys going to order today? Wow, I can really order today. I'll order. He ordered the food. I want to eat crystal meat. I'll order arhat prawns. I really want to eat smoked duck today. It would be even more beautiful if there was a pot of peach blossom wine. Heh. Arbor grabbed Prince Mo's hand and walked into the crowd. I was just saying. You took it seriously again. You. The little girl expressionlessly picked and chose the dishes in the food box, occasionally asking, do you want mutton soup? Yes. Chapter 1974. The meal lasted until almost 10 o'clock in the night. Everyone chatted about wine and food until the middle of the night before leaving. Miss Chiao had drunk a few cups of fruit wine and was a little tipsy. When everyone had left the room, Prince Mo carried Miss Chiao, who was half sprawled on the table, and quickly walked to the bathtub. Arbor opened her eyes, her little cheeks appearing a little flushed under the candlelight. Did I smile? The little fellow pushed her cheeks and insisted on asking the Crown Prince. Crown Prince Mo couldn't help but chuckle on the inside when he saw that she was a bit drunk and was displaying all sorts of naivety. He turned her small head to face him and kissed her cheek forcefully before replying with a shake of his head, not laughing. The little fellow instantly puffed up her cheeks and reached out to grab his collar. I wanted to smile for you guys. Mo Lien was a little happy and a little sad at the same time. This little fellow had been suppressing her emotions for a long time and was used to putting on an expressionless face in front of others, so it wasn't easy for her to smile. You can smile. He reached out to carry her, slowly unbuttoning her outer clothes and placing her in the bathtub. Today, Jojo found her lost senior sisters, so of course you should smile properly. Arbor nodded her head vigorously and said crisply, I'm happy. Emolien reached out to hold her little face and pressed his forehead against hers, softly saying, Jojo, treat yourself a little better in the future, okay? Shouldn't a child of her age be very willful and reckless? Who would suppress their emotions like her? Moreover, with her current status, so what if she was unbridled and arrogant? That was something she could do. Arbor reached out to hug Emolien's neck and leaned on his shoulder. For some reason, she couldn't stop her tears from falling. Lien, second Marshal Uncle didn't die. Second Marshal Uncle didn't die. I thought they were all dead, but they weren't. I'm very happy. I don't know how to tell you. Emolien raised his hand to caress the back of her head as he replied softly with a nod, I know, I understand. My Jojo has never been alone. Arbor pulled away slightly and looked at him with his misty eyes. Suddenly, he kissed him on the cheek. How do you know everything? Prince Mo was momentarily stunned. He blinked at her and said, Do you still remember the first time we met? At that time, you were still mute. I can read every single one of your eyes. It was fate that brought us together. You're the mute. She bit his ear. Emolien stiffened and pulled her away a few inches. He coughed lightly and narrowed his eyes. Jojo, why don't I help you take a bath? He originally thought that he would be punched on the head by the little fellow and then be chased out by her in embarrassment. Unexpectedly, Arbor nodded vigorously and raised her hands high with an expression that said, You do it. Student Crown Prince froze from head to toe at including his expression. The expression on his handsome face was completely stiff. What's going on? Why didn't he follow the routine? He just wanted to tease his little wife. He didn't expect that he would be teased by his wife again. I'll go see if there's any hot water left. Prince Mo jumped up from the bathtub and practically ran out of the door. Heavens, he didn't want to do his little wife on the spot in this rundown inn. The sixth watch ended. Chapter 1975. Arbor's raised hands were still hanging in the air. She looked at the crown prince who was running away and shouted angrily, What an unromantic guy. It's rare for me to be so merciful and give you a chance to serve me closely. It's fine if you don't take it, but you actually ran away. Idiot. Arbor jumped into the tub and leaned against the side of the tub. She stared at the closed door and snorted. Can't you just use your fire spirit to heat it up? Why did you look for hot water? Hubby, the water is too cold. Are you trying to freeze me to death? Prince Mo ran out of the door to breathe in the fresh air. His mind cleared up a little. When he heard Jojo calling him from inside the room, he became hot-headed and hurriedly pushed open the door and walked in. He closed the door and went behind the screen to take a look. The little fellow was completely submerged in the water, only her little head poking out from the side of the tub. Her beautiful black hair floated on the surface of the water, soft and curly like loose seaweed. Jojo, where's the hot water you brought? The little fellow glanced at him with disdain. Emolien. Who the hell remembers what hot water is? Heat it up. Arbor propped her little chin on the tub and looked at the man with sparkling eyes. A few round beads of water hung on her tipsy little face. Emolien hastily walked up, and a cluster of fiery red flames flashed past his palm. Arbor immediately felt the temperature of the water in the tub slowly rise. She snorted with satisfaction. Hubby, didn't you want to bathe me? A certain someone leaned against the tub and blinked at the man. Emolien felt like his heart was about to jump out of his chest. How could this little fellow be so lovable? Prince Mo raised his hand to pinch her smooth little face and gritted his teeth. Baby, don't play with fire, okay? I'm not playing with fire. Miss Chiao held a handful of water with her fingers and gently flicked it. The water droplets splashed onto Emolien's face. This is clearly water. Prince Mo gritted his teeth again and reached out to hug her. If you piss me off, you'll have to bear the consequences. Surprisingly, the little guy stretched out his two little hands in an easygoing manner, with a hug expression on his face. Her adorable little face was stained with tiny droplets of water. Under the dim candlelight, the little fellow's eyes were blurred, causing the crown prince to be in a trance for a moment. He subconsciously reached out to hold her soft and smooth little hand. With this touch, his entire body quivered and his vision became clearer. He quickly let go of his wife's hand and covered her head with a silk handkerchief. His Highness the Crown Prince, who had always been decisive in killing, was unexpectedly unable to speak clearly for the first time. You wash it yourself. I'm going back to my room to rest. Don't play with the water. Go to bed early after bathing. I'll see you tomorrow. Swish, bang. The door was slammed shut. Arbor's finger brushed against the surface of the water. He propped up his chin with one hand and huffed, "You have evil intentions but no guts?" Not long after, Arbor climbed out of the tub. He wiped himself clean and put on a clean set of clothes. He opened the window and glanced next door, his eyes rolling. Knock knock knock. Prince Mo had just tidied himself up and sat at the table to drink some water when he heard someone knocking on his door. It couldn't be his wife, right? Mo Lien got up and opened the door. A faint fragrance assailed his nostrils. The little fellow took advantage of the situation and threw herself into his arms. Prince Mo was immediately enveloped in a soft and warm embrace. Chapter 1976. Jojo, you're drunk. The Crown Prince finally understood why the little fellow was acting so strangely today. I'm not drunk. The little fellow waved her little hand with a proud expression. How could I be drunk? I only drank 3 cups of fruit wine. That's right, you drank 3 cups of fruit wine and you're drunk. Don't deny it. The Crown Prince hurriedly carried the little fellow into the room and kicked the door shut while he was at it. Hubby! Miss Chiao kept blowing warm air into his ear, her eyes blurred. Why are you so useless? You were scared just now. I'm not scared. Hearing his wife say that as a man, how could Prince Mo admit that he was scared? Then why aren't you looking at me? The little fellow reached out to hold his handsome face and leaned over. Her little face rubbed against the side of his face as she breathed softly. HM? Hubby. I'll be 16 after the new year. I'm 16. She kept whispering into his ear as she exhaled that a Hua from our village was already a mother of 2 children at the age of 16. Classmate Emolien's mood at this moment changed from extreme suppression to gradually surging, and then to this very moment. She wanted to throw caution to the wind. No, his little wife had already sent out such an invitation. How could he disappoint his wife? Wife, this husband understands what you mean. Although the time and place of the consummation was a bit off. However, since the time had come and his wife had invited him so enthusiastically again and again, if he still didn't go, wouldn't that be recklessly wasting a gift from heaven and not knowing what was good for him? Baby, wait for me here. Prince Mo excitedly placed his little wife on the bed and kissed her hard. Then he turned around and took out a pair of red candles from his inner world. His Highness, who always carried a pair of red candles with him, quickly lit the wedding candles. Since we're going to consummate the marriage, then we can't be too casual, right? No matter how simple and crude it is, the wedding candles can't be missing. When the Crown Prince finished what he was doing, he turned around and ran to the bedside to take a look. He saw the little fellow sprawled out on his bed, hugging a pillow. He had long since fallen into a deep sleep. Crown Prince was speechless. Are you kidding me? The corner of Prince Mo's mouth twitched. He sat down on the edge of the bed, extended a slender finger, and gently poked a certain someone's soft little face. Under the illumination of the red candles, the little fellow was sleeping sweetly. His brows were relaxed, and the corners of his lips were slightly raised. Seeing her sleeping so peacefully and comfortably, Prince Mo's lips curled into a smile. Mo Lien raised a hand to touch her delicate brows and eyes. She turned and lay down beside her. Propping up her chin with one hand, she stared at her for a long time before murmuring softly, "What should I do with you?" The next day, Arbor woke up in a daze and heard the crisp chirping of birds outside the window. Xiao Mu reflexively opened her small mouth and yawned. She shifted her body and creased her small brows in confusion. Strange, Why doesn't it feel like a bed underneath me? Good morning, Xiao Xiao. A handsome face that was just inches away from her was reflected in her eyes. What? Arbor moved her little body and almost rolled off him. Mo Lien stretched out his long arm and immediately pulled her back. He blinked and smiled. You pressed on top of me the whole night and you want to run away without saying anything? How could it be so easy in this world? Chapter 1977. Miss Chiao's face inexplicably turned completely red. No, it's you? Why are you here? Arbor wanted to get up, but a pair of arms were hooked around his waist, causing him to struggle for a long time. Don't you remember? Mo Lien frowned and pinched her little face. After you got drunk yesterday, you kept asking your husband to help you bathe. After bathing, you even insisted on hugging your husband to sleep. Nonsense. The little fellow immediately stuttered. Her little hand reached over and hit his head hard. Big liar. How could I be so ridiculous? Don't try to deny it, you were acting crazy when you were drunk. Now that you're awake, you won't admit it. Mo Lien looked at her bitterly and pointed at her little body that was lying on top of him. Do you see that? Evidence. For an entire night, your husband almost couldn't breathe under the pressure. Arbor hurriedly tried to get up. How are you? Are you feeling unwell anywhere? Could it be that her alcohol tolerance was really that bad? It couldn't be. Although her character wasn't that great, she still had a bottom line. Her alcohol tolerance shouldn't be that bad. My head is uncomfortable, my limbs are numb. I can't breathe. Mo Lien said faintly with his eyes slightly closed. Then what should we do? Arbor reached out to hold his wrist. I'll take your pulse and then give you acupuncture to unblock your muscles and bones. There's no need to go through so much trouble. Mo Lien flipped over. Miss Chiao only felt that the world was spinning. When she raised her head again, she saw Prince Mo pressing down on top of her head. Let's change the direction of your head, Mo Lien said softly as he propped up his chin with one hand beside her cheek. What are you doing? The little fellow suddenly felt that she had lost some of her confidence. She didn't know why, but this position made her feel a little creepy. She felt that the gentle crown prince in front of her could very well turn into a wild wolf in the next second. Feeling guilty, baby? What am I feeling guilty about? Arbor stubbornly defended herself. I'm not feeling guilty at all. What are you feeling guilty about? If you knew what kind of terrible things you did to me last night, you wouldn't have said those words just now. I don't remember anything. The little fellow put on a shameless face. I didn't do anything. Heh. He reached out and rubbed her little face. Do you still remember what you said to me last night? Tell me, when Xiaohua was your age, she was already the mother of 2 children. Arbor instantly felt like she had been struck by lightning. She pulled the thin blanket next to her and covered her face with it. Damn it, how could she say such shameful words? Her brain. Brain yesterday. Mo Lien twitched his mouth, and he pretended to be serious as he tugged at the thin blanket covering her face. What cover? I haven't finished speaking yet. That's not the only thing you did to me yesterday. I don't even remember. The little fellow's muffled voice came from under the thin blanket. It's okay, I remember everything. I'll tell you one by one. Hua. The little fellow hurriedly lifted the thin blanket on her face and reached out her little paw to seal the crown prince's mouth. You're not allowed to say it. Prince Mo tugged her little hand down and smiled as he lightly bit the little finger that she had brought to his lips. How are you going to compensate me? Chapter 1978. I can see that you're quite happy. Don't try to lie to me. The little fellow stuttered as she finished speaking, feeling that her little face was so hot that it was about to boil. Prince Mo giggled. He held her fingers and kissed them one by one before nodding and saying, although I can see that you're quite happy, that doesn't mean that you can always tease this crown prince and run away, right? I didn't run away. Miss Chiao stubbornly cried out. Where did I run away? She was still being pressed down by him right now. Prince Mo slightly lowered his body and whispered into her ear with a chuckle, "If I wasn't pressing down on you, you would have run away long ago. Do you believe me?" Gulped. The little fellow swallowed her saliva and hurriedly reached out to cover his sparkling phoenix eyes. You're not allowed to look. I'm panicking from looking. How can you not look? Prince Mo pulled down her little hand with a serious expression. I didn't know what eyes were used for in the past. Now that I know, it's to look at you. If you don't let me look at you, then what's the use of having eyes? The little fellow shrank herself into the thin blanket and covered her head. Her little face was boiling hot as she cried out in a muffled voice, You're teasing me. What's wrong with this guy today? Whispering sweet nothings so early in the morning, it made her flustered and her heart fluttered like a little deer. Wife. Prince Mo slightly curled his lips and dug her little face out from the blanket. He looked at her with a grin and his fingers pushed a strand of hair in front of her eyes to the back of her head. You'll be 16 after the new year. Arbor really wanted to dig a hole and bury herself. A while ago, she had indeed been thinking that JoJo would be 16 after the new year. 16 would be a big girl. Recently, her body had been well nourished. Compared to her previous life, she was completely too healthy. Moreover, she had indeed thought of that little flower in Kyoto village. 16 years old and she was already the mother of 2 children. But this was only what she thought in her heart. How would she know that she had blurted out everything to the crown prince when she was drunk? So angry, so angry, so angry. Wife, let's make a deal. When you're 16 we'll. Miss Chiao punched the back of the crown prince's head, took out a body-securing talisman, and slapped it on the crown prince's forehead. Crown prince was speechless. We're going to draw lots for the competition today. Get up quickly. Arbor pushed his body with all his might. Like a little octopus, he hugged his limbs and rolled around. Then, he quickly slid down from the bed. Want to run away again? Mo Lien sat up and grabbed the little fellow's wrist. This habit of running away after flirting had to be changed. Arbor coughed. He didn't run. Why are you in such a hurry? Well, we'll cross that bridge when we get there. After saying that, he quickly put on his clothes and ran out without looking back. Crown Prince was speechless. After one night, his wifey completely refused to admit what she said yesterday. What should he do? The Crown Prince pondered as he got up to put on his coat and tied his belt. His fingers paused on the tassel of the jade pendant on his waist, and his eyes lit up. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.